Good evening, everyone. For those who are in the boardroom and those who are watching us virtually, I'd like to call us back to order. Now we'll do with language access.
Thank you. We have Spanish interpretation available through Zoom and here in person, and we also have ASL interpretation available through Zoom. Muy buenas tardes. Tenemos interpretación al español disponible si alguien gusta escuchar la reunión en español. Gracias. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Maldonado, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to go to D5, an announcement of action taken in closed session. In our closed session, the board voted unanimously to deny 2 liability claims. The first filed by claimant Jennifer Solomon Agency, and the second a claim filed by Rachel Rowe, a minor, Roberta Rowe, and Richard Rowe Agency. It was unanimous. Next, we'll go to our student board member report. Welcome, Eric.
Good evening, everyone. As we conclude our first term and head into our second term of the school year, students have been encouraged to join the program for effective access to college, also known as PEAK, that are there to help us with after-school tutoring. So thank you to the PEAK staff for continuing to help and support us as students. We had our second superintendent student advisory council meeting this past Friday. It went amazing. We were able to continue from our last year's mental health project by continuing our mascot to be the face of a mental health application. We discussed how we can properly organize our mental health resources for our students, and we are planning to meet on November 13th, expected to meet at the Matt Academy at Santa Barbara High School to discuss how we can encourage students to encourage the discussion about mental health. I finalized the steps to creating a petition for Santa Barbara High School seniors to hopefully allow to express themselves by personalizing / customizing their graduation caps. Many students, both this year and previous years, have expressed their interest in this idea. I will be sending out this petition to all of our seniors to build support behind this petition. And I'll be presenting the petition with the administration team and hopefully discuss any potential steps moving forward. All of the high school ASB teams have been working hard to organize the homecoming events. They were all a great success. The Santa Barbara's theme was Rio. San Marcos celebrated with a night in Paris. And Dos Pueblos' theme was Night at the Disco. The ASB teams are continuing to work hard and bring us more exciting activities with an upcoming Dia de los Muertos celebration. Finally, I also want to mention an amazing achievement from Emily Moan, a senior at Santa Barbara High School, who proposed a bill aimed to help high school students by giving them an opportunity to take their AP tests upon completing an AP course while the material is still fresh in their minds. And I think there's a video for us.
Hey everyone, my name is Emma and I'm a high school senior who proposed a bill idea to Senator Monique Limon that would help high school students by providing them an opportunity to take their AP test upon completion of the AP course and while the information is still fresh. I'm happy to report that Governor Newsom has signed Senator Limon's Bill 1195 into law. As a graduating senior, I know this law will not benefit me, but I'm so excited about the impacts this will make on future high school students. Thank you, Governor Newsom.
Yes, a round of applause for Emma. Congratulations to her for such an incredible achievement. And that concludes my report.
What a way to include the report. Thank you so much, Eric. Now we move to the superintendent's report.
Good afternoon, everyone. For today's superintendent report, I really want to take some time to acknowledge all the committee work that is being done in our district across many levels of the organization. And part of the committees that we set up are sometimes in a topic of interest or a topic of importance that's brought before the board or a combination. And most of these committees are comprised of teachers, staff, parents, and community members as appropriate. I want to share some highlights from some of the work that some of these committees have done in these last couple of months, which is only month 2.5 of school and feels like more than that. The first committee that you've heard of already a little bit about is the Committee Addressing Black Achievement, Wellness, and Excellence. As you know, they've recently renamed themselves, and they met recently to define clear roles and responsibilities for the committee. The committee created the selection criteria and process for committee members, the makeup of committee members, timeline and term length, which will be 2 years. And they're also developing the resolution that will be brought to the board at the November meeting. The Arts Steering Committee also met, and they identified arts instructional gaps and developed possible strategies to increase arts positions with Prop 28 funding, including creating recommendations to address the arts learning gap in junior high schools. The Wellness Committee met, I should say, let me back up a little. The Committee Addressing Black Achievement Wellness is facilitated by Steve Vance and Anna Pilhofer. The Arts Steering Committee was also facilitated by Anna Pilhofer. The Wellness Committee is co-facilitated with Ms. Edison and other leaders like Matt Dittman from Food Services. The Wellness Committee met for the first time this year, and they discussed the need for further suicide prevention training. Elementary PE teachers are also expressed interest in creating a league between schools where schools could compete against each other in sports as seen in years past. We know that bodies in motion is really important as students are growing. And they are also looking to find opportunities for students to get outside and educate parents about wellness efforts and resources. Having some form of a parent-child cooperative. The Instructional Council also met, and that's led by Dr. Sheffield, along with SBTA representation. And this is a contractual agreement between the district and SBTA. It's made up of teachers that represent all the different schools and specifically in secondary, some of the core subject areas. Their focus is on developing an instructional framework currently. The framework is going to really define for all teachers across our system the ways in which we will implement district best practices for teaching and learning. The time was spent in small groups where they were defining teacher look-fors. So as they create some of these commitments, I'll give you an example. The teachers in the room wrote things like educators will provide scaffolding and support for all students to access grade level standards. They wrote educators will commit to using formative assessments and use data to inform instruction. Also, students will know how to engage in high-level questioning, predicting, and co-creating assessment, just to name a few. As Eric said, the Student Council, the Superintendent and Student Advisory Council met last week. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Eric, but we also agreed to create a video that students are going to lead. And we're hoping to produce this at our next month's meeting in November to create a campaign for normalizing asking for help and addressing mental wellness amongst our youth. So that's another outcome of our council meeting. And I want to thank Eric and all the students who joined us for that meeting. Mr. Cooper also sent an update on the Tech Use Committee. They reaffirmed their mission to enhance learning and build connections through balanced technology use. They were updated on the digital initiatives from last year, including the off and away phone policy, promoting digital citizenship, providing professional learning for teachers, especially on AI and universal access. And looking ahead, the committee prioritized initiatives on cyberbullying, online safety, digital citizenship, and maintaining smartphone restrictions. Last, I want to end with, well, not last, actually, I'm almost done. Yesterday, we had a non-student day, which is a professional learning day for our teachers and our staff. And one of the things that they covered in some of these sessions were topics like elevating lesson planning, learning sessions for different groups of people. PE teachers met together, arts teachers met together. We had all district teachers participate in training on integrated English language development. And integrated language development is the expectation that all teachers have some form of developing the language of their content when they have English learners enrolled in their classrooms. But more importantly, we started the morning with safety training for all staff on what we're calling our culture of care. And with the safety training, we wanted to ensure that as part of the commitment to ongoing training and discussions that we have had over the last few months in our district around the care for our students, we included training on standard response protocol. And we also included training on Crisis Go as our communication tool. And more importantly, we did some training around what to do in the case, unfortunately, and hopefully this never happens, of an active shooter case. I participated at this training at Santa Barbara Junior High School and had an opportunity to listen to the training, to observe it and hear some of the teacher concerns around safety measures that we could be taking, as well as listening for how we can support schools as they develop their safety plans and have the things that they need to ensure that we are both preventing and preparing for any type of thing, any type of emergency that does happen in our school, particularly because it's so important that we understand that the professional duties of teachers, amongst everything else they're asked to do, is the care for students in place of their parents, which we call in loco parentis, as you can see from the slide here. In September, we also held trainings on things like grooming, on child abuse reporting, amongst others. And I want to end with the State of the Schools. As you know, some of you participated at the State of the Schools. We did do a poll of the participants at the State of the Schools. And here, if I can have the PowerPoint come back up. Actually, I'm going to ask you to take it back to the standard response protocol slide. I'm going to pause here for a second. Here are some of the kinds of comprehensive school safety and wellness plans that schools do, and also our district building. I believe that you as a board have seen the standard response protocol from presentations prior from Ms. Edison. And so this is something that we want to make sure every single person that works in our school system gets trained on. We recognize that yesterday was a day with no students for certificated staff and 12-month staff worked, but our 9th, 10th, and 11th month employees did not work. We did offer them an extra 3 hours of paid time to attend. Some of them had already made plans, so they couldn't attend, but we were working as a team and with our principals to ensure that those folks also get trained on some of these protocols, as well as our substitutes. In our district, we have many people coming in and out. We also have our partners, as you know, you approved many times some of our partnerships with people that come in. And sometimes we also have SBCC staff. So this idea that we want to have a standard response protocol in a way for all of us to communicate effectively is really important. And it's something that we will continue to do in our monthly safety team meetings, as well as a district-wide annual event. We can go to the next slide. This is just, I wanted to give you a quick, for those of you that were at State of the Schools, this is what our poll showed from the participants. You may have participated on what are the skills of most importance for students. You can see their critical thinking, communication, relationship building skills, self-management, and so on. These are also some of the things that help us with as we build a culture of belonging and a culture of care. Because if we're doing all of these things well together and then ensuring our students are learning self-regulation, really building trust with our employees, we can hopefully do some of that prevention work. So it's all interconnected. I want to end with some celebrations. This Saturday, we had the Family Empowerment Conference at San Marcos High School. It was a great success and had a great turnout with friends and community members. I know Board Member Banning, this was led by Ms. Edison, who delegated this to many of our family engagement liaisons. There were many workshops, including College and Career 101. I also had a chance, as I announced at our last meeting, to read at Monroe Elementary at the library, to read to Mr. Cordero Rabe's 6th grade class. The book was called The Couch Potato. It's a sixth grade book, but I highly recommend it. And it was really a lesson on the importance of taking time to look up from your screens and enjoy the beauty all around you of the outdoors. Harding had a great pumpkin arrival, and the students took part in an interactive lesson that involved guessing the weight. The oversized jack-o'-lantern clocked in at a whooping 1,486 pounds. I don't have the name of the winner. I imagine we'll get that. And then lastly, we have a college fair night coming up Wednesday, October 30th from 6 to 8 at Santa Barbara High School Gymnasium. This event will connect local high school students with admission representatives from a wide range of post-secondary institutions, including in-state and out-of-state colleges, as well as public and private university. I want to end this report with thanking all our teachers and staff who participated in this training yesterday. We know that for some, this training, while it's meant to be preventative and to prepare us, could have triggered some people emotionally, particularly anybody who has been impacted in the past by any act of violence, has observed an act of violence, been a victim of an act of violence. And I also want to just give an extra thanks to them, because they're the ones at the front lines taking care of our students. And it's so important that we recognize how much they carry on their shoulders when it comes to not only meeting the needs of the academic needs of students, the social, emotional needs, but more importantly, their physical, emotional, mental, psychological safety. So thanks to any teachers who are out there listening today, to our administrators at school sites, and of course, including our district office staff who participated. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, both Dr. Maldonado and Eric. Those are very informative reports, letting you know what's going on inside the district, right, and how that impacts how we are outside. So I'm going to continue and to encourage us to continue reporting out what we're doing, celebrating, and also looking at as we're talking about. That includes being a culture of caring to make sure that the public knows what we're doing as well. So So we will be moving to our next item of public comments, and Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have general public comment for items that are not on today's agenda. We have 3 minutes for public comment. There's a clock to the right of the podium. And then the light will turn yellow on the podium when you have 30 seconds. I'm going to call out the first 3 names so that you can queue up. First up, we have Claudia Cavaletto, followed by Sarita Bott, followed by Rose Pondell. Welcome. And then there should be a button there.
Can you hear me?
Try it one more time.
It's on.
The light should be on.
It's on. Okay.
Good. Welcome.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Maldonado. I am a concerned parent and want answers regarding the spiteful behavior and decision-making that has taken place over the last several months. Superintendent Maldonado and you board members agreed to remove after-school enrichment and gave nothing in return. On Friday, October 4th, Superintendent Maldonado and the board members agreed to remove 5th grade overnight trips. On the same afternoon at 3 p.m., Superintendent Maldonado failed to inform McKinley, Washington, and Monroe to go on lockdown when there was an active altercation that involved a weapon at SBCC. The safety of our students and staff was put at risk, and no one sees this as an issue. The continuous opportunities that are being taken away with no valid reason, the only reason being brought forth is about equity, which we all know is a cover-up and not a valid reason. But since you speak about equity being the issue, then the expectation should be equity across the board at all campuses and grade levels, not just at the elementary level. When will equity begin at the secondary level? You have all 3 high schools offering 3 different career path programs. Please explain how that is equity. Now you want prior knowledge of fundraising, and you want to approve any and all fundraising at the elementary level. Again, the spiteful behavior needs to come to an end. Why do you feel the need to micromanage fundraising? I strongly believe that it is time to focus on the wasted resources we have working at the district office to support Superintendent Maldonado to do her job, as she is fully not invested. Enrollment numbers say it all to our community, down 60%. Lastly, at the October 8th board meeting, Superintendent Maldonado commented that she would be visiting school sites and reading to the students during library. Please explain how after your first term as superintendent, you now care to visit school sites. As a leader of our district, this should have already been happening. Save yourself the time and start strategically eliminating the positions you created upon your arrival to our district to give sufficient budgets to our schools and paying our school classified employees who are the face of our students, our parents, and our staff daily. The motto, every child, every chance, every day, I have yet to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sarita Bott, followed by Rose Pondell, followed by Barbara Ann. Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have Rose Pondell, followed by Barbara Ann, followed by Caroline Abate. Welcome.
I'm the mother of 3 children. Greater expression due to the lack of open dialogue with our community, it remains unclear whether the board intends to eliminate schooling entirely or move it to 6th grade, thereby removing a second opportunity for outdoor education. I want to emphasize that I am strongly opposed to either option. The importance of outdoor education cannot be overstated, and reducing it to a single brief experience at an elementary school is wholly inadequate. Outdoor education has consistently proven to boost academic performance, foster essential skills like teamwork, leadership, and problem solving, and alleviate stress, anxiety, and depression. By maintaining outdoor education in 5th grade and keeping the additional program in 6th grade, we can offer our students a richer, more impactful foundation of personal and academic growth. As a parent who believes deeply in public education and the value of diversity, I'm concerned that equity is being misunderstood here. Equity is not about cutting opportunities. It is about removing barriers that prevent students from accessing those opportunities. Instead of focusing on those barriers, keeping some schools from setting their students opportunities, the district is instead removing or limiting this valuable experience, removing programs like CUNY and Access to Enrichment and fairness and reminding the role of equity. Nature and outdoor education should not be luxuries of the wealthy. All students deserve access to these experiences. Neighboring districts like Coast, Montecito, and Cold Spring understand this and continue to support these programs because they recognize the immense value in giving students a sense of safety and community through shared experiences. SBUSD students will be in junior high and high school with these same students who had far more opportunities provided to them at the elementary school level. That is not equity. Based on the district's stagnant test scores, the majority of 6th graders are not meeting grade level standards. It is clear that there are bigger priorities to address. Removing enrichment opportunities that are not even funded by the district while basic academic needs are met shows a trend for lack of focus. It is time for the district to reassess priorities. Our district should be working to provide every student with these opportunities, not taking them away. Let us focus on removing barriers and expanding access, not reducing the richness of our children's education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Barbara Ann, followed by Caroline Abate, followed by Caitlin Jennings. Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann? Yeah. Welcome. Good evening.
My daughter went there. I was born and raised here in St. Barbara. My daughter, the school has changed radically. And I'm here just to talk to parents, hopefully, or let them listen as I speak to you. To speak to the state of our public schools. Did you know that California was once number one in the nation for education and now ranks towards the bottom of the 50 states? With a budget of over $1 billion, Santa Barbara County schools are failing our children, with only 38% being proficient in reading. 60-some% of students are graduating without being able to read, and the Hispanic and minority kids are testing even lower. This is the Dems school to prison pipeline, and it needs to be shut down. Why did you refuse to listen to 300 parents and community members back in 2020 and 1,000 that signed a petition protesting the sexualization of our children by adopting the curriculum Teen Talk. I'm not going to get over that. For example, why would you be telling kids that anal sex is one way to have sex? That's part of the curriculum, and I've got it. This is all leading to pedophilia, and they are waiting in the wings for our kids. Apparently, you don't think parents know what is best for their children, and apparently you still don't, and are cutting parents out of the picture, which we all predicted would be coming down the line. Parents, have you gone to the school library and seen the obscene books that your kids can check out? You need to do that. They are severely obscene. I've got a whole lot of books in my own house that I've had to look through and read, but they're nothing compared to what's in the schools now. And that's within 4 years. Drastic difference. All this diversity and equity messaging is a part of the propaganda that is pitting our children against each other because of their skin color. Your social and emotional learning is actual social engineering and preparing our kids for radical ideas. We need to stop this. Vote in this election for candidates that want change. They want our kids out of the clutches of nonprofits.
Ms. Barber,
and their
can I,
agendas
Ms.
are-
Barber, can I pause you there? Please, no campaigning, not about voting, anything. So if you could
Jason
just stick to
Hicks,
that.
Phyllis
Thank you.
Cohen, and John Robertson can replace these people. Come and see me if you'd like more information.
Again, so not campaigning. Thank you.
Carolina Bate, followed by Caitlin Jennings, followed by Jory Zusmer. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. We know that success results from working in harmony with reality. For example, imagine an architect who insisted that 2 + 2 = 5, or an engineer who ignored the laws of chemistry and physics. We know what would happen. The building would collapse and the bridge would not be safe because they are ignoring reality. In the same way, there is another reality which cannot be ignored without suffering consequences. That reality is the humanity of an unborn baby boy or unborn baby girl. We see that reality in their beating heart, their unique DNA that is distinctly human, nerve endings with which to feel pain, and tiny fingerprints beginning to form. Just like the collapsed building and the unsafe bridge, what are the consequences of the health curriculum textbook teaching abortion as simply a procedure to end a pregnancy, when in reality, it is ending the life of an unborn baby? We see mass public murder killings happening with terrifying regularity in our country. We hear about the terrible tragedy of young people committing suicide. We see that the meaning and purpose, beauty and value of human life has been eroded away. Life is more important than anything else and must be given the highest priority in our society. However, is this beautiful idea reflected in all of our school curriculum and textbooks? Perhaps we should think about the benefits of teaching students the incomparable value, dignity, and worth of every moment of every person's life, starting with the humanity of an unborn baby. Thank you so much for your time and your patience and being willing to listen and to think about these ideas. May you have a good evening.
Next up, we have Caitlin Jennings, followed by Jory Zusmer. followed by Reagan Peters. Welcome.
My name is Caitlin Jennings, and I am a concerned parent of a second grader at Washington Elementary. I stand before you tonight deeply disturbed not only by a series of questionable decisions made by the administration, but more so by the utter lack of transparency and disregard for effective communication with parents. Several weeks ago, I spoke directly with Lynn at Washington Elementary. We discussed specific commitments, improving communication with parents, and fostering a robust partnership between principals, teachers, parents, particularly concerning fundraising efforts. Yet, just last night, I received a mere text message informing me about the drastic decision made at a meeting to effectively end PTO and PTA fundraising by January 2025, unless those fundraisers have prior written approval by an already time-strapped staff. This was a meeting I believed was intended to promote equity and cooperative strategies across our schools, but it seems I was mistaken. What happened to our partnership? Where are the agreed upon protocols and respect for parental input? Moreover, to the board members present, many of you who are up for re-election this year, your absence in this discussion is glaring. At the Independence Town Hall, you spoke of developing metrics to evaluate administrative performances. Is this current debacle being recorded? Be assured it is being keenly noted by every parent and will be remembered at the polls. How has it come to this, where dedicated parents feel pushed aside after investing significant time and resources in our children's educational environment? Are we now to step back and watch basic needs go unmet? No more fulfilling teachers' Amazon wish lists for essential supplies? Are we seriously banning simple community building activities like bake sales? This is not just about fundraising. It's about respect, transparency, and the very integrity of our educational system. Our children and our teachers deserve better. We demand clear answers and a transparent plan on how parental involvement will not only be protected, but encouraged moving forward. We expect more from our leaders. We demand accountability. Let tonight be the turning point for an improved dialogue and respect for the community you serve. It's time to remember that your decisions have real consequences for real people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jory Zismer, followed by Reagan Peters, followed by Lacey Peters. Welcome.
It's me again. Hi, guys. So the first time I came to one of these board meetings, honestly, I was pretty shocked to see how some of those angry parents and teachers spoke to you guys up here on this podium. But honestly, I get it now. No matter the issue, people are mad. We're beyond frustrated because you don't actually listen to our pleas up here on this soapbox. This is all just an illusion for your make-believe utopian society that you're trying to create, but it does not and cannot exist. Every school is different with different needs, just like every family in our district is different with different needs. And trying to cram us all into a box, the same shaped box, is not considered equity. It's nothing more than a dictatorship. And frankly, we will not stand for it. Where does the equity line get drawn? Our school can no longer afford basic printer paper. And apparently we're no longer allowed to fundraise for it without approval. Do you understand and hear how ridiculous that sounds? Attempting to disband our PTAs and PTOs is malicious, and it only hurts our children. You should be ashamed. I'm happy to remind you that many of your positions are up for election soon. And
Can we still,
people,
I know that I've said this, please, with regards to the campaigning and up for the reelection, if we can stay.
about campaigning.
But you're talking about reelection and that we should be threatened by that or in that sense. So if we could just keep it to
We,
your point, we
people,
really hear you.
will not allow you to create this division of class through our community, because that's what you're doing. Your poor decisions are lowering enrollment because those with the means are evacuating to private schools to escape this hot mess. But we will not back down. It's time for you to go back to LA because you have no.
Excuse me, these personal attacks, can you conclude your point? If they're not going to stay on course and being respectful, then we need to, you got 45 seconds. And if you can maintain respect in
We
that,
do not trust.
and it's not, this is not the place for personal attacks.
We do not trust you with to be in charge of our children's education. My name is Jory Zussmer. I am a pissed off parent, and this isn't the last you'll hear from me.
Thank you.
Regan Peters, followed by Lacey Peters, followed by Joe Block.
Hi, my name is Reagan Peters, and I am in fourth grade at Washington Elementary School. This isn't fair. I have waited years for SEME and have been so excited to go since kindergarten. I have watched my older sister go and many of my peers go as well. They have told me all about the fun they've had and how I would love it. My sister also just got back from outdoor school, and why do I have to pick one or the other when all kids should be able to go to both of them? We let all kids go to both of them at our school, and we can help other schools do the same thing. I am an adventurous person and love to explore, so I think it would be perfect for me. If you take this away from us, I believe it will make a big negative difference in my life. This will affect my social skills and independence if I don't get to go. SEME will help me learn how to be social and an independent person, how to make new friends, and help me and others feel more confident. We should be focusing on doing things that actually help us and the kids that have by COVID. Please consider my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Lacey Peters, and I made a mistake. Joel Block is not next. That's for a later item. I made a mistake about who is after you. After Lacey Peters, we have Nicole Barr, followed by Kim Eubank. Welcome.
Okay. So I prepared a speech, but I'm gonna scrap it. I got emotional listening to my daughter. I'm here for the same reason why a lot of you guys are up there. You care with big hearts, and I know you do. And I know that equity is a really, really complicated situation in every school. I've been in higher education for 20 years. And what I do know is that I'm a change maker, I'm a community builder, and I really want to work towards a solution to fix this. I'm also angry, but instead of being angry, is my mic not working? Sorry. Okay, thank you. Instead of being angry, I want to go towards, there's a lot of fear. People are freaked out, people are scared. We need to move towards love. We need to go towards building our community back to where I know it can be and where it once was. And I think that there's ways for us to even build coalitions within the parent groups, within our schools. I mean, I know that there's a bunch of us that would be happy to be a part of anything that would be positive. I think that probably the way that information is getting disseminated, the lack of transparency, that can be addressed. There needs to be a lot of increased communication. But I also just feel that, you know, we get more bees with honey. And so I think it's important to honor that. I am a proud parent at Washington. I am also a renter, and I pay an exorbitant amount of money to try to stay in that district. And I know that. I also work 2 jobs. I've worked 3 jobs since I moved here 20 years ago, and I will not quit because I love this town so much, and I'm going to hold on for dear life. With that said, you know, I fundraise like crazy with the rest of my community. And if we need to band together to fundraise together for whatever schools needed, I think we need to band together. So I'm here to offer solutions, to listen, and to focus on the right things, because I think we all know what's wrong. That's all I'm going to say. I didn't say anything that I wrote, so there we have it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Nicole Barr, followed by Kim Eubank, followed by Rich Lashua. Welcome.
Okay, hi. First of all, I have taught two of your children up there. And I'd like to say they both were fantastic human beings that I love dearly. I am a teacher in the art department at Santa Barbara High School. I teach VADA and in the traditional art department. And one, thank you for your support and like everything you've been doing to come and support the kids' efforts and our efforts to create something better for them every day. And I'm here actually, I know there's like a lot for the other subject, but I'm here actually to talk a little bit about the STEAM arts thing. And just really out of being here for a really long time and seeing the progress and seeing what we've created. And I've been here long enough to see this room transform from just being kind of bleak to having our art on the walls. And I've seen my students' art on the walls. I see our students representing us. I see so much. And my concern is I now have kids where like my skin is in the game, so to speak, now too. Not just my students, but my own children. And I have a kid who took art until now, 5th grade, and suddenly our amazing art teacher that I love with all my heart, Shannon, moved up here to do wonderful things too. And there's this great person in her place, but they just happen to be a STEAM teacher. And it doesn't mean that they're less than or teaching something wrong at all. I think STEAM is wonderful, but I'm concerned that we're making a sacrifice that's not necessary. We could add rather than subtract. I know there were concerns that some of the other schools had STEAM and art. And I think that would be more equitable to add to rather than subtract. And I say it with maybe like, I don't know if anybody's run the numbers, not just like numbers. I don't want you to think only in terms of numbers, but can we? We have Prop 28. We have excess money at some of the schools to spend on human capacity that we could share with other schools. Like we're sharing with Franklin and with the junior high. Because we know we can hire somebody to share between all of us and because we had excess. So I feel like there's a way to get this done without taking things away from our kids and just adding to. And I think I heard somebody say, what's wrong with giving everybody more rather than just kind of taking things away? And I think that could be applied in a lot of areas, but the thought of my second child now in kindergarten not getting any true like arts education is frightening, especially because at the junior high, then they have to choose. And so I worry about that, but thank you for listening and I appreciate you all. And yeah.
Thank you. Next up, Kim Eubank, followed by Rich Lashua, followed by Stephen Crosby.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I have a 7th grader and a 5th grader. I had the honor of being a CME chaperone 3 weeks ago for my daughter's 5th grade class. I'd like to share a few things I witnessed during this trip. There were beginner swimmers who had never been in the ocean before, putting on a wetsuit, snorkeling with sea life, and even petting a baby leopard shark. Talk about equity. Every child was out there having these incredible experiences fit to their abilities and their comfort levels. I saw kids homesick at night for their parents, and instead of me comforting them as their chaperone, their classmates and their friends immediately helped and supported them. Talk about community and team building and bonds that will continue to grow with these classmates. I saw kids who had never been on a hike before wake up before the sun and hike in the dark to watch a sunrise, over Catalina Island. Talk about accomplishment, confidence, and pride that they felt that morning. Overnight trips for young children are more than just field trips. I would encourage you to go on one of these trips and experience it firsthand. Maybe then you'll understand how important, how critical they are as building blocks for our students. Taking away things in the name of equity is backwards. We should find ways to provide these things in the name of equity. For someone who references it so often when stripping down programs, experiences, and now fundraising in our district, you should know that this is not the answer and it's fundamentally wrong. I challenge you and the board to find ways so that all of our students can have these opportunities, not take them away. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rich Lashwell, followed by Stephen Crosby, followed by Mrs. Rachel DePass. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm thankful for Superintendent Maldonado's comments recently during the State of Our Schools event about preparing students for college and making sure they can pay for it when they get there. However, what happened to college and career ready? I realize in today's culture, it's near blasphemous for a teacher to suggest that one can make a good living without a college degree, but it is the truth. Katy Perry went to Dos Pueblos High School, and we're cutting choir classes. There's an international film festival blocks from this very building every year, and we're cutting film classes. One of the guitarists for the Foo Fighters, an internationally touring stadium-filling rock band for over 3 decades, is a Santa Barbara Junior High alumni, and we're cutting music classes. Anthony Edwards of ER and Brad Hall of SNL are actors directly from this district, and we're cutting theater classes. Why do we act like these are pleasant pastimes with no real benefit beyond padding those A through G requirements on college applications when our own backyard is overflowing with globally recognized talents in almost every arts field? They are valid career pursuits on their own merits. Of course, not every student is likely to win a Grammy any more than win a Nobel Prize in chemistry. Regardless, as educators, we are in the business of humanity. Why then are we allowing all of these cuts to take place in a group of disciplines commonly referred to as the humanities? Why are we cutting out our own humanity? Much concern was raised over the learning gaps at the junior high level. I don't think it's a coincidence in the slightest that we have made the deepest cuts to the arts in our junior high schools, and now they're the ones struggling the most to keep up. So we're faced with a dilemma. Do we continue to feed the fear and conduct active shooter drills during professional development days, knowing full well that most of the schools in our district have way more points of entry than can be effectively covered by our budgeted safety staff? Or do we understand that love drives out fear? Do we create an educational system that teaches kids there are healthier, more human ways to deal with problems than shooting up the school? If we train our students to be more human, will they become more humane? The cost of eliminating arts programs is much, much greater than the money saved. The kicker, though, Dos Pueblos was praised for beating both the county and the state in the area of student preparedness, and Principal Woodard attributed that to quality counselors and students having endless possibilities. It's no coincidence that yesterday's VAPA steering committee recommended 7 course takes at the junior high level. Please give these kids their arts back. It's an equity issue where our most marginalized groups don't even have access to basic humanities in their education. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Crosby, followed by Mrs. Rachel DePass. Welcome.
Yeah, can you turn your mic on there? It should be a green light when it's on.
Did I get it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. My name's Stephen Crosby. Thank you for having me. I'm a parent of a child at Roosevelt. Until a few moments ago, I had not heard anything about further restrictions on PTO activities. I truly hope that's not happening. I came to respectfully express my disagreement with the district's, and as I have been led to believe, Dr. Sheffield's decision to restrict PTOs from funding additional overnight camping trips for students. At best, new limits on PTO funding overnight camping trips can only address the perception of equity across the school district. No matter the policy we set, parents and PTOs will surely find a way to continue to use their budgets in ways the district finds inequitable. So this new policy targets only perceived inequity, but leaves actual inequity unchanged. The policy doesn't achieve a desired outcome, and it's unempowering and demotivating. I have more to say about how the district could empower and motivate communities to more deeply engage with our students' needs, but I'm sure we don't have the time for tonight. In short, this ain't it. My request to the district is simple: reverse the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rachel DePass, and we are closing public comment.
Thank you, Gabe.
Welcome.
In 2021, the board passed and adopted a resolution affirming their commitment to justice through equity across the district. This document states that you understand the significant difference between
Can
equity.
you turn the mic on? Is the green light on?
Yep, it's on.
Okay, maybe there's something there. So if you could get closer to the mic, it's technical, it's not you. Thank you.
This document states that you understand the significant difference between equity and equality. But it seems like the line between the two is becoming unclear. In this document, the board defines and agrees that equity is every student's right to receive what they need as individuals to succeed. In this document, you also agree that equity is not that every student receives the same amount of resources, instruction, and attention. Equity does not mean equality. You have stated over and over again your goal to provide equity for all students. We're all on board with that. However, based on recent conversations, you are crossing the line and making unjust decisions. If equality is the goal, then every school would receive the same amount of funding, resources, supplies, and the same amount of instruction per child. If equality is the goal, my child should get the same amount of one-on-one instruction and support as a child with an IEP. And every child, no matter their income, would be offered a spot in the free AOK after-school program. But we all know that is not the case, and that's not even what we want. Again, we agree that equity recognizes that individual students and schools have different needs, challenges, and abilities. How much further are you willing to cross the line and strip our students of everything that helps them succeed academically and social and emotionally? You've taken away our after-school enrichment. You've taken away 5th grade camps. And now you want to audit our field trips. You want to micromanage fundraising and donations that literally pay for our STEM program and curriculum specialists offering one-on-one support for our students. We pay for educational apps and school supplies. Are you going to also tell parents they can't help provide their teachers with hand sanitizer and pencils? Because we do that every month. There's a request for something, for Halloween goodie bags, for volunteers at field trips. Are you going to keep parents from volunteering at schools because not all parents can volunteer? If you're going to strip our schools of everything parents help it become, everything we do to make our school site equitable, tell me how that is going to help our students across the district. Tell me how that is equitable. I urge you to take a step back and remind yourselves of the equity commitments you accepted and must be held accountable for.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Okay, so that concludes our public comments. Are the rest on for agendized items? Okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone who shared your concerns with us tonight, and we are listening. I know we're working through this, and we're trying to, again, what does equity look like? Everybody has a different idea. It's different. I was at Washington. I'm an alum. I was a fundraising parent, so I've been there. I know it, and I understand. And this world is different. What we're doing. And really appreciate your comments today. And I do think we can continue to work toward where we want to be so that every child has that opportunity. And we'll continue to go down this so that we're doing that. So know everybody's trying to work toward that, figure out the best way to do it, take the input that is here and try to make that, so that our kids are not suffering as a result of us adults at this point splitting up. And it's not just one side of that. It's not just one-sided. And I really hear all of that. What I've heard most here that I haven't heard in being a parent in this district, but I can appreciate it. And if it gets us to this point and moves it, what I've heard, we will band together and help other schools. That is not something I've heard as a parent. That's not something I've heard in this board. And I'm not trying to criticize, but I'm just saying out of this, I know that we can get to our best efforts to address the equity, what that really looks like, and how do we make sure how we're doing this. And so don't give up on this. I know there are some angry folks here, but we have to continue to work our way through this. We need to look at it. I know Dr. Maldonado is taking copious notes, as is district staff is looking, how do we do this? And how do we continue to look at it and figure it out? Because I know, first of all, we have to do it. We have to figure it out. And so I just want us to give ourselves some grace. There's a lot of things that's going on here, and we're going to always, everybody in here wants the best for our students. And sometimes we disagree on how that pathway to get there, but we're going to get there. We just have to continue to work hard and rethink and adjust and adapt. But if out of this these discussion and hard discussions and it may be seeming like it's not being equitable or we're taking things away, we're going to get there. I really believe that now we will have this process and that we are going to band together and help all of our schools get there, meet their needs, whatever they are. I think one of the speakers said about meeting the individual needs. We just have to keep going there. We have to keep doing that. Thank you for coming here and reminding us and bringing your concerns, because, and that's also being engaged in your child's career. That's also being engaged in the district. This district is going to get there. We just have to figure to continue to keep our heads up and not down, because it's heavier when it's down. But we continue to look up and expect that we're going to get there, that we're going to get there. And so I can appreciate the hard comments. I can appreciate those, and we can receive those, but not out of the fact that that doesn't deter us for trying to make the best decision. And for a long time, it has been that a lot have been able to go and a lot haven't been able to go. So as we're working toward that equity is one of those hard things to do, because now it feels like something is being taken away, and hopefully that's not what we're trying to do through these policies and procedures that we're looking at to make it better. And I know not everybody's going to agree, but we're going to get there if we're going to keep our students in the forefront of what we're doing. We're creating that culture of care, and part of that care is listening to our parents. We do want to support our parents as their child's first teacher and their first supporter. So we're going to do this, and I know this board is committed to doing this. And so thank you for continuing to come and hold us accountable to our resolutions that we say. We want to make sure that what we're saying on our resolution is not disconnected to our actions. So it's really important to be able to do that. So thank you for your comments this evening, and Dr. Maldonado and staff will figure out how we're going to communicate what we've heard tonight. So thank you. With that, board members, comments, board members' comments and or questions from the public. Yes. Just your comments. Yeah.
I just wanted to share a couple of things. First of all, thank you, President Sims-Moten, for the comments. This is one of the most difficult parts of being a board member, is just to sit and listen without opportunity to really engage. And that's not what the board meeting is about. We are hearing you, we are listening, and we are wanting to work through this. And I would echo her thoughts about wanting to get there. We're going to get there. I also wanted to say, provide compliments to our student board member, to Eric, for his report tonight. I appreciate the engagement. Particularly of interest is the notice of the legislation that was created by the student. What was her name?
Emma Limon.
Emma Limon. What a great idea. If you weren't here, what happened is we had a student at Santa Barbara High School, Santa Barbara High, okay, who worked with state legislature to have a bill put forward about when students take their AP tests in conjunction with the end of their coursework, rather than waiting a semester or a year. And that's just a wonderful accomplishment. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. Also appreciate Dr. Maldonado's committee reports. That's the first time I've heard that level of public explanation about the multitudes of committees that go on. There's committees for everything, and they're part of how we work through our problems. I did attend the State of the Schools event and appreciated the presentation. I was there where I think all of our board members were there. I also attended the parent empowerment workshops at Dos Pueblos High School this weekend. And what caught me most was there were parents there that were in workshops, but there was just a highway of our partners down the hallway. all at tables that gave an incredible opportunity for us to have visibility of the numerous and different type of educational and community partners that we had, all wanting to offer support to our families there. So I want to give my appreciation to those staff members that organized that and communicated. And if you see that coming up again in the future, do take some time to do it. There's incredible resources there. One last thing that I'll raise is that I've read about a Senate bill that I wanted to share with you because it gives some perspective to what people in school districts do, not just teachers, but the administration. We talk about what are these people here and why do we have all of this? This is a bill that requires the state to gather information about the number and duplication of reports and plans and compliance issues and data submission that they have to do. And I read through that. It's a 24-page document about this. There's 4 or 5 pages that list the reports and requirements that every school district has to do. There are 93 of them. 43 separate required plans and reports that every school district in the state, no matter their size, has to submit to the state or federal government. 50 separate required data submission and compliance activities. These are the kind of things that you don't ever see as parents, as teachers. These are the things that go on behind the scenes besides people sitting in the room at a board meeting. Each of these things have multiple hours of responsibilities. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate that somebody was looking at that, and there's a little bit of a legislative response to trying to get rid of some of the duplication and the redundancy in those things, and ask the question, how many of those 93-point reports are necessary? What could the time be used for to better make a school district efficient? So those are my comments. I just wanted to share those bits of information tonight, and to say thank you to our public speakers. We are listening to you. Thanks.
Additional comments? Mr. Escobedo?
Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold, so I'm a little nasally, but I want to echo the thanks for everyone here. We are taking notes. We are following up with staff and having conversations, and Dr. Maldonado has been discussing this with us over the course of the last couple of weeks. I do have a couple of committee reports. So we had 2 housing meetings with our housing ad hoc committee. And at the last meeting, you might recall that we approved an agreement for the Tatum project for over 100, I think 110 units that will be dedicated to teachers and staff. Following that meeting, we had a meeting about Parma School on the east side across the street from Trader Joe's. The Housing Authority got their pre-application back from the city with comments, and they're addressing those comments, and they will be submitting their official application, hopefully in a little over a month. And then because they're using a state law, SB 35, it will be a streamlined process. So we pretty soon here will have a completed application, and I'll keep you updated as we continue to meet on that. And then we had an additional meeting on Glen Annie with the owners of Glen Annie to discuss an MOU that will be coming to the board soon, and also discussed strategies and plans for addressing the concerns around that project right next to Dos Pueblos High School, talking about traffic and talking about our plan for reaching out to our county partners and our state representatives to discuss possible solutions for that and other concerns that folks have about the project. So you can anticipate that coming to the board very soon. Thank you.
Additional comments, board members? Ms. Munoz?
Thank you, President Sims Moulton. I'd like to share that I was able to attend over the weekend. The Santa Barbara Charter School had arts and crafts at Stowe Park, where students and the children and parents and staff participated in making crafts in preparation for Dia de los Muertos. They're going to be having their first event. Their ofrenda is happening this coming week. It's going to be displayed October 30th through November 1st. And they're on the site of Goleta Valley Junior High School. And it just, you know, seeing the children and learning about, you know, the tradition, as one of the parent leaders said, you know, it has deep roots in Mexico and Mesoamerica. Dia de los Muertos blends Aztec and other Mexican traditions to honor and remember loved ones who have passed away. So there will be photos, artifacts, and, you know, some of the children made little, you know, art to put up about like pets that they've lost and such, and just that, you know, community event I'm looking forward to. I'm also looking forward to also going to some of the other schools here that, including Adelante, that will have that. And this coming Thursday, on a different note, in terms of art, Del Pueblo Cafe is having an art show. Del Pueblo Cafe is a small restaurant over at Magnolia Shopping Center in Hollister, owned by 25-year-old Giselle, who launched this restaurant. It had been in the family and has shared with me about, you know, her excitement about it and her fears also, being a young entrepreneur, and just, you know, it's full of artwork there, and she's having a big event there Thursday. I will find out where she went to high school. I realized I'm not sure where she's an alumni from. I'm guessing San Marcos, but I'm not sure. And on Friday, Casa de la Raza is having a Halloween costume party starting at 7 as an event in the community. You know, all folks are welcome to that. And yeah, and certainly in terms of art, I am interested in what more we can do with our students in terms of classes for them and, you know, expression. And, you know, I think it's very good in many ways, not just artistic wise, but also in terms of their mental health. And I also want to say thank you to Eric for his leadership with us. Very much interested in topics around mental health for our students and families. Thank you.
Additional comments, members? And I'll just add a final comment. I also want to acknowledge and thank our students for coming out tonight and before the board. So thank you for your time. I know it's a school night. And also I want to acknowledge the work that happens with the PTOs and the PTAs. It's been a long standing of filling in the gap when the state funding has not been able to do that. So as I said, we're going to get there, and everything that is done and in the name and supporting our student is definitely appreciated. And I keep saying that because I do firmly believe and want to work toward making sure that we get there. So with that, we will move to accepting of donations. May I have a motion?
I move to accept the donations for October 22nd, 2024 with gratitude.
Second.
Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Now we're moving to item F, where we have the budget and staffing sustainability report. Just let them clear for a minute. Okay, you cleared the room.
This happens.
We got to get better with
This
these numbers,
happens
right?
to me all the time. I don't know what it is.
Okay, would you go ahead? I know Mr. Escobedo's coming back in. No, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Board Trustees. Tonight we're bringing, Dr. John Becchio and I are going to co-present this report. It's the Staffing Sustainability Report. I'll, it comes up. There we go. you have received a memo that went along with this report that gave you a lot more detail. We're going to go through the slides and just point out the most important points on the slides as we go along. Oops, that's not it. Oh, it went. Okay. And these are the three areas that we're going to talk about on the slides. It's basically, we're going to be looking at our objectives to our budget sustainability, our staffing overview, and categories of staffing and costs. The purpose of our budget sustainability reports is we will be bringing these every month to you as we are really looking at our fiscal health of our budgets. And we, per a request of board member Escobedo, we are showing the items. You can just click on those of the past presentations that we have had. We will just keep adding those so that people can go back and look and see what we have done in the past. These are our objectives to identify our fiscal sustainability. Tonight, we have arrows there showing most of the items that we're going to be talking about, but really the top two, I would say, are balancing staffing levels with student enrollment to avoid overstaffing, and also to ensure long-term financial stability through disciplined budgeting. Those are the two main items we're going to be talking about. Our AB 1200 that you all approved, the county reviews our AB 1200 and they gave us a recommendation that we would need to have $10 million in cuts for the 25-26 school year. But that is really not the only thing that we can do to kind of balance this kind of off-kilter scale that we have here. We could also put more revenue on the left side of the scale to help balance it. And we can take expenditures off of the right side, or we can do a combination of both. But what we need to do is try to get to that $10 million number. So we're looking at these things. Some of the ideas that we looked at were, could it be a possibility that we could receive more revenue? And that I looked all the way back for about 7 years to kind of get an idea of the difference between where we do adopted budget and where we end the school year with our unaudited actuals. When we do the adopted budget, it is in May of the prior year before you've even started the school year, and we haven't even figured out yet what our property taxes are going to be for that year, because we get the final number after the close of the year. So it's around June or July is when we know actually what we're going to get for that year. And sometimes what happens is the county will apply prior year adjustments, and that typically will end up being more money because we don't project those as we go through the school year. We don't know what those are going to be. Another thing that can happen is lottery monies. We don't know what lottery monies are going to be, and those tend to come in very late in the school year. So even now we're projecting what our lottery numbers will be, but we don't know yet. So could it be that we would receive more revenue than what we had projected in adopted budget? The answer is yes. In the past 7 years, we have received more money than what we had projected, and the average across those 7 years was about a 6% increase over all the revenue. So I'm not saying property taxes, I'm saying everything, lottery, everything. So our revenue for the property taxes is an estimate that our assessor's office gave us. They said it looks like that we should project 3.75%. So if that revenue comes in 5%, then that increase, then that would be an increase to our revenue. If it goes above 5%, that is an agreement that we have in our successor contract that our labor partners negotiated with us, that they would get those increases to the salaries. But we have other revenue that could go up as well, like lottery. So the lowest percentage of increase over all of our revenue over the past 7 years was 2%. In some years, it was much higher. The average was 6%. So let's say that our projected revenue goes up by 2%. That's $4 million. And that would help that left side of the scale kind of come into more balance. So then we start looking at our expenditures, and we typically have a historical special ed rollover of about $2 million. That's because the estimates that come to us from the SELPA office, that come to us from our county numbers, they all usually start at an adopted budget as us receiving less revenue and our expenditures being higher than what they usually end up at the end of the year. And after working in the SELPA office for 14 years, I do understand how this happens. One of the reasons is the SELPA office holds some of the revenue for the school districts across the county, knowing that there could be legal costs, there could be other costs that that it's held in a pool for all of the districts. And if those costs don't occur, then more revenue is allocated out to the school districts. And we are one of the largest school districts. We tend to get more revenue at the end of that. And some of the expenditures are the same way. We estimate them to be a certain amount, and then as the year goes by, they change. So historically, the rollover has been about 2 million, which means that other side of the scale would then you take 2 million off and you'd start to balance it out again. We also have determined as a district that we are freezing non-essential travel and non-essential hiring in 24-25. All this we're talking about is for 25-26, right? If we start now, then our ending fund balance will be a little bit larger. As we go into the school year, we may not have to take as many cuts. And we are also looking at overstaffing in secondary, which Dr. Becchia will talk a little bit more about. But that could be about $1 million. So if you add in the revenue and you take out the expenditures, we could have a potential savings of about 7.5 million, which leaves us with 2.5 million to have to deal with. I feel very comfortable about most of these all these numbers, because we have the historical data to look at. And what is important to us is that we are trying so hard to maintain the staffing that we have to support our schools. So that's the goal. That's why we're looking so closely at all of our budgets and really tightening up and having everybody really be very thoughtful about expenditures, is because we want to make sure that we have as many people staffed at our schools as we possibly can. Now we're going to go on the staffing overview. As a reminder, this is the district staffing budget, and 84%, that big blue Pac-Man piece right there, is salaries and benefits. It's 84% of our total budget is our people. So if you're starting to look at cuts and things like that, that's where we're having to really try to hang on and make sure that we maintain that amount. This is just going to give you an idea of where all those employees are. We've got the certificated is 59% there. Classified is 29%, management 8%, hourly 1%, and our substitutes are 3%. These are our employee groups. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Becchia.
Okay, good evening, and I will continue on here. So this is our staff demographic slide. I really love this slide, and I want to point out something most critical here, which is if you look at each slide, I put the demographics of our staff by bargaining unit group. So we have management, certificated, classified. And you'll notice I do have a bar there, managers of color, teachers of color, employees of color, just to express the diversity in each of those groups. I also put below the certificated, because that really is where we see a predominantly white teachers in our teaching group. But I also put the state data down below so you can see that comparative. These are credential holders in the state of California. And then I compare it here to our district data. So anyways, and I'll move on, but we're going to be we're looking at ways in which we can continue on getting some of our own students and some of our own employees into the teacher workforce. So stay tuned. This slide just gives you an idea of the vacancies that exist. It's far different than what we are used to seeing in the previous years of COVID and you know, just after COVID. So lot of movement in the special ed para range. We see a lot of out, and then we see a lot of in. So we see a lot of resignations and a lot of hiring in that para space, and we're still have a lot of vacancies there. Moving on to the certificated teaching staff. This is elementary, and the top graph there shows you where we landed with respect to class sizes. As you know, that was negotiated language in our successor agreement, and I wanted to give the board and public a peek at what our class size averages are in those grade spans. Pretty close in elementary. We get pretty close to the line, not a lot of overstaffing. Quite a bit easier to schedule than secondary. I'll show you the contrast in a minute. Elementary, the bottom part, the number of teachers, this just gives you the teachers at each school, FTEs. So how many teachers are there working at each school, and what category and what grade span and category. You'll see special ed down at the bottom and specials. One point to note, I don't think it's showing up on the slide here. Well, let me go to the next slide. It's its own slide. So elementary specials, this is a pretty large investment the district makes in teachers at our elementary schools in these subject areas that you see on the bottom line. So I wanted to give you all a peek at what is happening at each school, the enrollment. You can look at all the data there, and how many specials teachers and what they're actually teaching. Important to note, yes.
Can you also add which schools, or if you happen to know, are also funded by school fundraising or added?
I believe
fundraising?
the Washington has a STEM. I'm trying to look for Washington there. Yeah, the STEM is funded by private or PTO money. And I don't know if there's one other one. I think that's it. I think that one's it. Not in the room. Okay, well, maybe we can. But it's important to note that this investment is tied, though, to PLC time and prep time in the elementary. So, you know, that's how we're able to give the contracted prep time that we're obligated to give. And then we move to secondary here, and I am showing you, this is where Kim mentioned it, the overstaffing. You'll see we're about 7.5 FTEs overstaffed in junior highs and almost 3 in high schools. That is down at the bottom, gives you the amount of money that is. It's not actually too bad in the high school range when you're talking about having 100 teachers at each high school. But the junior highs that's pretty significant for the junior highs. So, you know, 5.2 of those are due to the under-enrolled electives. And then there's other nuances to scheduling that have caused some other overstaffing as well. One important note to point out, that 170 sections that are below class size of 21. So that's something we're taking a close look at, and we'll see if there's some savings that we can grab in those sections. This is all for the 25-26 school year. And then I thought it would be interesting to give you a peek of the general services that are provided at each of the levels. These are the positions. It's not the quantity of positions. We, you know, at the high schools could have, you know, 8 custodians at the high school, but it does give you the level of services or the positions that serve our school sites. And then the district support staff at the bottom. So categories of staffing, I did want to depict here the 7th period day and what that costs per school. So you can see adding a class course take to the junior highs would be approximately a $2 million expense. Again, important to note that there is contract language around the teacher's contractual day at junior high, that contract language would not be able to stay in place if we wanted to add a 7-period day, because we would need a slightly longer day. I'll be right back.
Don't go far. Okay. This, I just wanted to talk a little bit about special education. I'm not going to talk too much about the staffing of special education, but I just wanted to give you a peek into the actual expenditures and the funding of special education. We will be having the SELPA director come in December is what we're planning, to really give you a good deep dive into special education finance, which is very different than just regular school finance. But I'll give you just a quick peek at it. Our total special ed expenditures in 23-24 were $39 million. The federal funding for special ed for us was $3 million. Now, this is a federally mandated program. We're required to provide it. It's a federal law, but we got $3 million to cover it from the federal government. The state funding was $13 million. So what happens is the school district pays the rest. You'll hear that called the special ed contribution. Some places they will call it a general fund encroachment. But really what that means is we have programs to serve our students, and we are serving our students. And if they are underfunded, we need to pay for them how we can, which is with our general funding. So the special ed lives on the restricted side of the budget, because restricted means that you receive funding for a particular thing and you can't spend that money on anything other than that particular thing that the state or the federal government has told you to spend it on. So that's where the special ed expenditures and revenue live. When we need to backfill the shortfall in the revenue that we're receiving, we have to go into the unrestricted side of the budget and backfill it, scoop it out, and put it on the restricted side to make that program whole. So that is what is called contributing from the unrestricted side of the budget. I just wanted to go over that because this is something that is really difficult at times for people to understand, that this is how the funding works for special ed. And we know that this was difficult, especially during negotiations, because once we got to fact find, we realized that our labor partners did not contribute. It looks like we have $23 million extra dollars sitting over there on the unrestricted side when we don't, when it has to be scooped out and move it over to the restricted. So that was a sort of a misunderstanding as to how the special ed funding and expenditures work. And so I just want to keep kind of highlighting that as we go along so that people can kind of understand it. And that's why we're bringing the SELPA director as well, to really give us like really clear deep dive into the fundings so that everybody's clear. Do you have the, click it. Okay. So, and I just really wanted to be really clear about what special education is. And it is general education. All of our students in special ed are just our regular general ed students. They are in our general ed classes with all the other students, and they receive supplemental special education services per their I can't say that word. Individualized education program. I don't know what happened to my tongue, which we always call IEPs. That's what that means. So it's just really something that is very, very important to understand. That's why we have the large cost in special education. It is a big supplemental program to really serve the needs of each individual student that they need.
Okay, I'll run you through the last slides here real quick. These are categories of costs. The R2 calculation, this is probably one of the 94 reports that we have to submit. The R2 is a state mandate that we cannot have, we have to have below a certain ratio of certificated management to our teaching staff. And we do meet that R2. I think we're 2 below it at this point. But also I wanted to give you the historical context of district office management that comes up from time to time. And over those 6 years, that's the level of management that's served at the district office. And then this is broken down into teaching and learning. So a lot of like what's happening right in the classroom. And then the services that support the teaching and learning, that's usually school site support or district level support. So you'll see the FTEs here for about 855 of our FTEs are in the classroom. And I included summer school there because that is the summer school teaching and learning. But remember, FTEs is not people. So FTEs, like one person could be worth 0.5 FTEs. So the numbers won't exactly compute to people. And again, we did meet the CEA requirement of 55%, and that would fall in this particular category of teaching and learning. And then these are the categories, general broad categories of support that you see. There's probably, 600 of these, if you add them up, are direct school site support, maybe more, 650 are direct school site support. And I also wanted to point out that substitute teachers are on here. We looked into that a little bit. Those are, our expense there is about $2 million. And so I wanted to mention that as well. We did recently raise substitute rates. So ours is right along the rate of the county. We're higher than some, probably below a couple of them by $10 a day. But we do coordinate with the county on substitute teacher pay. We did do about a 40% increase and I think it was a 60% increase to the long-term sub rate. The long-term sub rate, this board increased to $290 a day, which was great move because those teachers are planning, they're calling parents, they're grading. And so to have them at a level that is right up to a starting teacher rate, just about, was a really good move. But anyways, those were raised recently by pretty large percentages. So those are going to remain stable for now, and we can take a look at that with the county in the coming year. And this just gives you a graphic of those two slides together, so you can see the difference between the two and the sum of both. And we also Kim and I both want to thank our foundations, PTOs, philanthropy, donors. We do a lot of public-private partnerships on different things throughout our district programs. And, we do have a very generous community. We're very thankful for those partnerships and wanted to recognize them in our presentation as well. And with that, we will be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Becchio and Ms. Hernandez. We have requests to speak on this item? Okay.
Yes, we have one public commenter, Joel Block. Welcome.
Thank you. Before I start, I would ask that the board president direct district staff in making its report not to be dismissive or disdaining of the teachers union. A comment was made during the report implying that the teachers union negotiators did not understand how special ed funding worked, and that is inappropriate. And I'd ask you to direct staff not to do that.
Mr. Block, this is part of the public comment here, and so we will take that under advisement and we'll go from there.
That was not going to be part of my public comment,
Okay.
obvious.
All right.
And I would ask that I have my 3 minutes because that was something else.
Okay, so just being mindful, let's stay on our 3-minute time, and then we can address those things separately so that we give it due
Appreciate
attention.
that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good evening. I'm here tonight to share some thoughts on the budget and staffing sustainability report. I want to preface my remarks by stating two things. First, I'm a fiscal conservative. It means I believe one should not spend money one does not have, but should find a way to spend money one needs. Second, while I believe that we need a radical paradigm shift in how we create and implement the district budget, my remarks assumes that all the numbers relating to the budget are accurate. First, the report makes it clear that the district believes it is overstaffed on teaching level and makes suggestions as to how to fix it. After thoroughly reading the presentation report, I was unable to find any similar statement related to district office staff. Either the makers of the report do not believe that district is overstaffed, or they feel that the brunt of any reductions should be borne by the teachers. Second, the main issue gleaned from the report is that the district should reduce the number of electives offered and thus elective teachers unless class enrollment reaches a particular number determined to be a critical mass. While that may sound reasonable, it has a number of problems. This situation of low numbers in electives was actually created by the district, and I admit past union leadership, when the policy of open enrollment was instituted. Open enrollment has created an inequitable situation, and I also believe that it belies the statement that our main concern is the well-being and educational and social development of our students. Open enrollment has created a situation where a number of schools, the elective option has been limited to only certain people. Third, the report makes it clear that one of the reasons for reduction in teachers is the increase in cost based on the recent contract. That probably is accurate. But who created that problem? It was the district by its refusal in the past decade to negotiate an appropriate level of salary so that teachers could afford to live here. The district had offered better salary increases and benefit increases. There would not have been such a big hit this year on the budget. Higher incremental increases over the years would have led to less serious budget problems now and in the future. Fourth, if this idea of needing 20 plus students in a class is universally implemented, it would end alt ed. If I could only teach a class with 20 students, I would have to teach every class would have to be a minimum of a third of our students. Finally, the district likes to promote about equity and equality, but the elective offerings and teacher reductions will affect our BIPOC population more than any other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the only public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any comments and questions for Dr. Vecchio or Ms. Hernandez?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. So I just want a little clarification on some items, and I also do have questions. So just to be clear, when we approved AB 1200, which was our proposed budget for this year, with the 10 million cut that is being proposed by the county, that is for next year based upon maintaining our reserve. Like, we were anticipating this cut and they confirmed that. Is that correct? Is this a strategic planning? I'm just trying to figure out, we've made cuts for this year. We know that we are deficit spending. Is this an additional 10 million that has been proposed by the county because they do not like the level of our reserve? Where did this come from?
So the $10 million in cuts relates to maintaining the reserves at a certain level, and it affects the 26-27 school year.
Okay.
So we have to make cuts at the beginning of 25-26 and some in 26-27 in order to maintain the required state.
Okay, so
revenue.
the 10 million is really over the next two budgets? Is that what you're
The
saying?
10 million is for next year, for
Next year,
25.
and there'll be additional
There'll
cuts
be additional
if
cuts.
things
Mhm.
don't change. Okay,
Right.
so I just wanted clarity on that.
Right.
Okay. Just kind of going through the slides, because there's a lot of information and a lot of things to kind of digest here. Just looking at this idea of staffing, we what has been identified in these slides is that potentially our secondary schools are overstaffed. And we have these conversations about matching staffing ratios and students understaffing. I feel that one thing that could be considered, and this has actually been suggested by members in the community, so I won't take credit for this thinking, that there is smart staffing. And we have these discussions about having coherence to teaching, having coherence to what we do in this community. And is there ever consideration that we treat some of our schools as a group and that we share if there's an under-enrolled class that maybe isn't filled every, I always get confused because we don't use semesters every block or whatever, that there may be in some of the less enrolled classes, teachers that travel to other schools so that we can not release staff that are needed and we don't have these issues of having to cut, because I am disturbed by the idea of losing talent and, you know, to make the fiscal line look better. So I'm thinking about how do we creatively approach this problem so that we retain our staff, that we can maintain ratios as well as we can and not actually decrease staff or classes, but be smart about our scheduling and how we distribute that across schools. So I'll bring that up. The other question is the specials. I do feel that we do have kind of a interesting issue there, which we do feel how important they are. And we talk about the 7th period and we talk about under enrollment in these electives. And I feel like we've set up a catch-22 situation where students can't enroll in these classes because there is no 7th period. So they're under enrolled. So just once again, you know, we can look at money and we can look at numbers, but I think if we had a different attitude, looking at other solutions that we come up with or other schools employ, how can we get around that without closing schools, without getting rid of talent that we'll never get back again? So just being more creative and maybe looking at our schools as a group instead of individual schools. How can they help each other? I'll make that comment on that. I think maybe this is all food for thought. So that's more food that I'm giving you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Comments, board members? Mr. Banning?
First of all, you touched on a hot button for me, and I just wanted to say kudos on working with the county on substitute levels. I have worked in counties where districts fight one another for subs. You raise the sub rate and the next district doesn't get subs, so they raise the sub rate, and you really just basically explode the cost of subs by competing with other districts. So kudos for working with the county to maintain a level for that. I don't think any of the other questions that I had are really relevant. I can find them at other times rather than the board meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Escobedo.
Yep. Thank you I really enjoyed this presentation in particular, but I appreciate this is the most digestible look at the budget that I've had since being on the board. I appreciate you adding that slide about for people who want to go back and look at the previous presentations and put the whole picture together. One thing that popped out to me, and I'm interested to hear your take for this for Ms. Hernandez, maybe Dr. Becchio, but it was more optimistic than I think I anticipated. When you hear a suggestion to cut $10 million, and then it looks like, obviously round numbers, we're estimating there's a lot of variables. 7.5 million of that is something that seems achievable with basically very little change. That seems pretty optimistic to me, but for you, and thinking about what Dr. Beal is bringing up about, 84% of our budget is staff. So I'm looking at that and I'm feeling quite optimistic that there might be a solution for the 2.5 million, but you look at the budget every day from many different angles. What is your opinion?
we're looking very closely at everything. But I feel, like you, I feel more optimistic than I did when the county said, you know, you have to cut 10 million. So, cutting is not the only answer. And we're just going to have to see as we go a little further along regarding our revenue as it comes in. We will know more after the very first chunk of property taxes hit, when everybody starts paying their property taxes. We'll know a little bit more. I'm not sure we'll know it in time for first interim, but because I think it's usually tiny bit afterwards. But if we do, you know, we'll start revising our numbers and start giving you a good understanding of this is what we are really seeing coming in and what's happening in our local revenue. If donations come in and those kinds of things, we'll be looking at all of that. So I just wanted to paint the picture that it's not all grim, that there is a chance, and that I feel pretty comfortable about the things that we looked at as being typically every year we see that swing in those areas. There may be others, and we know we're already tightening our belts. So we know that we're already hoping that we're going to get to the end of the year better off than we projected all along for this year. And we're still talking about next year's budget. So I feel more hopeful than I did as we are really doing these deep dives into our budget. We will have a better understanding as we go along and as we get more information, but I feel good about at least those things we looked at tonight.
And when thinking about, there's always the very important date of March 15th that comes every year. Do you feel confident that we will have enough information to make pretty educated decisions for that deadline by that time? I know that we're going to get that first chunk in. We'll have had first interim. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I at that point also I'll be talking with the assessor's office, like really truly what do you see is happening in property taxes across the county? We'll be getting all of that data. We won't know exactly, but we'll have a much better picture by then. And we are really making a conscious effort of looking at everything, turning over every rock, trying to make sure that we understand exactly what our budget is doing and what our expenditures are doing. So we'll definitely we're anticipating by January, we're going to really be looking at staffing for next year. So we'll have a better understanding for that too.
And the impression I get is from not only today, but previous conversations that we've had, the intent is to protect the supports for our students. And a lot of that is staff, right? And so as we look at our budget and we get closer to that March 15th deadline, it's always with that thought is that the greatest supports for our students are our staff, right?
That is exactly the right statement then that's what we're really trying to protect, our staff.
Thank you. And Dr. Becky, I think you brought up the slide that spoke about the cost for the 7th period day. And obviously that 7th period day, you're talking about staff again, going back to that. Our next, I think the contract reopens in 2 years. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
So this is more of just a general comment and an interest for myself is that as we approach that mark to reopen negotiations is for us to start investigating and thinking about while we're in the budget, because we're going to be constantly thinking about our budget, that if we are going to do this, and I think Dr. Bill, you made a great point about sometimes we look at under-enrolled classes or electives, and there might be something else going on. There might be some other policy decision we made. It very well could be the removal of a 7th period that there's just not the option for many of our students. It's a discussion that's not going away, and it's one that I want us to be prepared for and start thinking about not just the financial reality of what we have in place now, but to think about, I personally have an interest in having these discussions when it's appropriate to talk about the 7th period day. And we're going to have to talk about how we fund it and what that means for us. And we know, while it looks definitely more optimistic than I anticipated when we were talking about this 2 months ago, we're still going, unless something dramatically changes, we're still going to be in somewhat of a precarious situation financially. And if this is going to be a reality, a real option for us to be in discussion, we have to have some thoughts or some plans about what does that mean for the district? What does that mean to changing our operations? Do we have to, we're starting to have those discussions now about non-essential travel. And it was really helpful to see what the new process is. And at some later date, not tonight, I'd love to get an update about how that's going, how it's being received, how it's working. But we may have to do that in many other areas if we're going to accommodate options like this in the future, because it's an expense that is definitely an investment, but it's something that we have to solve for. And I just want to express my interest in having those discussions or us thinking about ways in anticipation, because 2 years is going to go by fast. With that, just a whole lot of gratitude, and I'm looking forward to the next report. Thank you.
Dr. Maldonado.
I think John and Kim, I know they were sweating on this one. There's a lot of data to gather and figuring out how to put it in a comprehensive way for you all to understand this big system that we have. In one of the slides you notice, and I spoke about this in my State of the Schools, we are mostly a secondary district, which by definition costs more to run. At the same time, we have priorities. We want to have really great foundational skills attainment in academics in elementary. And I'm really proud of all the investments we've had, some before me, some when I've arrived, and hopefully some better after I leave, that we actually do deliver on academics, the arts, athletics, which makes for a well-rounded whole education for every child in our district. And the investments that have been made in the past, sometimes at the cost, as Mr. Block mentioned, on salaries, have all come to fruition here. And I want to acknowledge today, as I was at a meeting of the SF Squared, a group of school districts that are like ours, that are community funded districts. And there are several conversations we had around, for example, the non-funded mandate to offer UTK, which in our district has meant an additional 12.5 teachers in the last 2 years that we have had to add to our budget because we believe in offering TK classes in our district, but we don't get additional funding for that, and we're still expected to implement it. It has meant additional staffing, additional furniture, additional curriculum, and we can go on and on. We also just got a legislation update that we have a new personal finance class that's a graduation requirement for the high schools. And when we think about, well, who's going to teach that class? Typically, we see single subject credentials needed for a high school class like that. Thankfully, legislators are getting a little bit more savvy, and we're allowing social studies credential or an econ credential and a few others that are allowed to teach the personal finance class, but it's a brand new high school requirement, unfunded mandate, which impacts our master's schedule. And so as I think about this conversation, as I'm listening to all the comments, as I want to appreciate what was said about special education, and I want to apologize if the comment was made people feel like we think somehow people don't understand it. And I think the intention there, and I'll let obviously Ms. Hernandez speak for herself, but it is never the intent to pit one program against another or to say someone knows more about the other. But we all know that special education is completely underfunded by the federal government. It is the right idea for us to offer individualized education plans for all students. It does require a lot more funding. And we are here, and we've been here for 30 years, at least that I've known, where we have had to make up additional funding for the right reasons. And it doesn't take away from another person. And I hear a lot tonight about taking from one to pay for another. And that's never the intention. There are unintended impacts and consequences, and we need to address those. The other thing that we are looking at is and I heard it and I keep hearing it, as you mentioned, the 7th period. I believe in the arts just like everybody else here. My personal opinion, however, is also informed by the ability for us to implement a robust enough program that kids get not just music, but visual arts, performing arts, dance. There's different types of arts. So as we think about junior high school, I've spoken to other superintendents who do a wheel of offerings so that students are exposed throughout the year to, let's say, 6, 8, 9 weeks, whatever the amount of time we decide, so that they learn about all of these in junior high school. Because we are hoping to create pathways so that our children from elementary to junior high to high school can have a variety of offerings by the time they get to the high school. And I'm proud of the work and the pathways we have at all high schools. We could never offer every pathway at every single high school, but we have enough variety, and we're in a community that's small enough for students to really travel to any one of the 3 high schools. We have the high school showcase, just a little pitch coming up. On top of all of this, as we look at curriculum adoptions, which are badly needed, we also have the cost of time to teach teachers and professional learning, which is an additional cost and a great investment for our district. So as we think about that, as we think about open enrollment policies, which could create flight from certain ethnic groups into other places, we are going to have those hard conversations and make those hard decisions in a continuously enrollment dropping district that is not unlike the rest of the state of California. So while we think of these as only, Santa Barbara Unified problems, they are existing in other places. So for today's presentation, the intent really is to pull back the curtain and show you, the board, show our community all of the pieces that are involved in how we are organized with our people, time, money, and resources. We are not making decisions. We're not asking you to make decisions. We're not even making recommendations. My goal is to provide enough information to the board in the next coming months so that you can give us direction on your priorities, your recommendations on how you want us to move forward, while keeping in mind that our intent is to help us figure out how to protect the classrooms, how to protect what students are getting, with the understanding that at some point there will be ways to mitigate that, either through attrition, resignations, retirements, and such. But it is a very complex space, and I just want to acknowledge, some of the comments that have been made. I want to acknowledge some of the miscommunication, misinterpretation of intentions, and really inform the board and our community that we're really trying to make it all happen. But at some point, we can't continue to act as if there isn't these mitigating factors that are coming down the line. I'm facing decisions from previous boards and superintendents, and I'm trying not to create even further, hard decisions for the next level of leaders. So I just wanted to share that with the board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Payne.
I think it is very difficult to plan for the future. This declining enrollment is an issue, and I think it actually impacts our facilities. We are community funded, so we are not funded based upon the amount of students we have, but maintaining facilities that are not full and having teachers staff those facilities, that's definitely an issue that we'd have to talk about. I would comment that at the junior high level, I would say that a wheel, if we're going to do something or consider something like that, that does need to be a bigger discussion. If you're a musician, a wheel is not going to work for you. Students start learning music at an early age, they become inspired. So there may be some areas where that may not be effective. And I'd like students to have the options that if at a very early time they identify in a visual art, music, whatever, that they have that. I think junior high is not so young. I would love to have the wheel in elementary. That would be a good place to have that. And when we're looking at our staffing, you might notice that some of the schools do not have visual arts, or they have part-time visual arts, and that distresses me a little bit. So once again, we're trying to figure out the future. We don't know what's happening. Budgeting is an issue. I would like to have lots of conversations about this, and we have conversations at the board and district level, but it is really important. We are hearing from the community that they want to understand our decisions, and they would like to participate in our decisions, and I would like to give them that opportunity.
You reminded me, I was remiss in thanking our partners, because we know Santa Barbara Ed Foundation contributes large amounts of money towards the music program. So thank you for that reminder, because it is also done in community with other partners. Thank you.
Okay, again, I would like to just add to the comments, just in terms of thank you for this presentation and thank you for the comments. I would just say too, again, this, as we've said, we are a community school. So we work in this community to do the best that we give. And we are very fortunate, as I'm sure others, that we have such a generous community. And so how do we use and look at that a little bit differently in terms of supporting us through these difficult things, as you've talked about, in terms of the variance that people may not realize, unfunded mandates. You know, it shouldn't be one against the other. This is something we must do, particularly around our TK. That's the foundation to where we go and how we be successful going through our schools. So I appreciate where we're going there. And all these conversations that we're having has come out of the moments of the labor negotiations, of not hearing, not understanding, not getting information in ahead enough time. And so these presentations and conversations that we have tonight is doing exactly that, not only educating ourselves, but the opportunity for the community to come in and read and have this resource to further understand or ask for clarification. And then we only improve this process by doing that and having that conversation and not accusing, but really looking at, we're all trying to figure our best thing, because we haven't inherited things that came from previous years. And exactly right, we don't want to push anything further down the road. It is with us now. So what are we going to do now? And I think we're starting to look at that and address those issues on these reports. As Dr. It's late, so you've become a doctor by that time. So I am, if anything else, consistent about that. So just in terms of that, we are continuing to look at it. We're getting it ahead of time. We're here and we're hearing that, and we're trying to best balance between what the state requirements are, ed codes that come out and tell us all different things. So the more that we can really talk about things that we are impacted about, how we're impacted by, that we don't really have control of, right? And so how do we best also do that, not as an excuse, but an information with regards to that? And I was listening to, Dr. Maldonado, you said about what we're trying to do with the culture of care. Well, good stewardships of a budget is part of a culture of care. We've got to care for our money. And when we do that, and we see that, and we're making sure that our priorities, there's not a gap between our priorities, right, and what we're actually doing. And so this information, yeah, it begs questions, as it should. But it also says we're willing to put it out there and hear input to do it, because we might have some great opportunities and even additional partnerships with our community. So if we may not have the teachers, I mean, I did hear the cost about adding a 7th period. So can we look at and be creative, not creative financing, but creative processes and priorities with regards, are there community members that maybe can come out and help with teaching the arts, is what I'm hearing is missing. So can we use creativity in our community partnerships to allow us to offer these classes, to minimize some of the costs of what it takes to do it. So I think we use all of the creative uses that we can to continue doing it. So I want to, again, to just start to say, we are really putting action on what we said. We are moving as we're working. So we are moving from talk to action. And sometimes we don't always see that. But if we really take a step back out of our anger sometimes, and that's just everybody, and making sure that we're not reacting, but we're really trying to respond in a way that what's in front of us, and how do we start to move to better and more comprehensive conversations that don't sometimes end up in accusing someone this or that, and just being open, like, I didn't really understand what you said. Can you explain that? So even the language that we use and with regards to our public comments and different things that are coming about. So there is a sheet, though. I just want to get a clarification. I don't know what number. I'm sorry. There's a slide that is talking about the certificated teacher staffing. And there's that line that talks about that is there a STEAM teacher in every one of those? So I get confused when they say that we don't have those in our classes. And so, but yet I'm seeing this here.
So it's slide 14. And
Slide 14,
I
okay.
think I'd like to ask Denise if she's still here. Is she here?
Oh, okay, yeah.
To talk about this. And this is one of those areas again where we put things together and we go like, oh, look at how this is panning out. We need to rethink this. And so you did approve a item last week, 2 weeks ago, last meeting on the preparation of STEAM teachers that's happening with Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy. But I do want Denise to explain like how we ended here this year with the selection. Thank you.
Yes. So several years ago, there was different decisions made and there was options of, do we want to have a STEAM teacher or an art teacher? And that decision was given up to the principal, to the administration at each of the sites. Some chose art, some chose STEAM. Through that process that was before me, that I can't really get into the details because I wasn't here, but I can tell you that, for example, Adams has a full-time art teacher and they also have a full-time STEAM teacher. Cleveland has a full-time STEAM teacher, but no art. Franklin has a full-time STEAM, full-time art. Harding, full-time STEAM, no art. McKinley, full-time STEAM, no art. Monroe, no STEAM, no art. And Roosevelt is no STEAM and a full-time art. So there, in Dr. Becchio was sharing with you, we just added a part-time art. So our entire plan, as you know, I worked with the 5-year strategic arts plan 2 years ago. And over 2 years ago, we were working on that process. And our goal was to increase the arts and not take away. That has never been the intention. Our intention is to increase the arts. Through that process, we identified ways in which we can add more classes. We receive funding. Unfortunately, all schools don't have enough funding to pay for a full-time art teacher. So we need to be very strategic in figuring out how do we share, how do we put our funding together in order to have or increase the arts, but at the same time, keep our STEAM. We also don't want to keep our STEAM. Something was brought up about Monroe. There was an opportunity to hire a teacher here at Monroe because there was an opening. And so we flew the position, and the STEAM teacher, their specialty has to be in the arts. It's part of the job description. And so it is important to keep that in mind. Our goal is to continue to add to the arts. That opportunity came up. We are building a STEAM program as well across the district, in which we had 7 STEAM teachers in 7 STEAM teachers at 7 of our schools, but 2 schools didn't have that. That wasn't supporting the system we wanted to create across all of our schools. The opportunity came up between the principal, myself, and Anna Pilhofer, who's now supporting the arts. The 3 of us made the decision to go ahead and fly the position as a STEAM. We're trying to build it and continue to add more art people. So currently we have art in every one of our schools, right? Through STEAM is our way of covering art throughout. And it's a little bit more challenging, but now we have the funding to support the arts. STEAM doesn't have their own funding except for the LCAP, which pays for the salary of our STEAM teachers, with the exception of 1 school that is shared with the PTO.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment that have preferenced this comment. So I appreciate it that I know we're bringing back in December that I hear you say about the special ed. So we have to, that gives it a little bit more time for people to kind of process the information. I wonder if this is an opportunity at some point. I don't want to add to, but I'm just, as we're doing these types of reports, is there an opportunity to further dig a little deeper so that parents understand that piece? Because that's kind of where that was coming from. We don't have an art teacher, or we don't have this. And if we could, break out if any of these are, what is the funding stream for those? So you mentioned LCAP for those. And if it's not there, is it funded by the PTAs and the PTO? So I think that's really important to kind of, break that out so we're real clear on where that funding is and just acknowledging it as well. And I think some of that came in the report that you had 2 years ago. Maybe we revisit that report and say, here's where we are now, because that's been 2 years ago. Sometimes we don't know what we had 2 weeks ago. So I'm just saying, particularly now, when we're really trying to be transparent and really trying to make sure we're communicating clearly, and it can dispel some of the upsetness because don't fully understand, or we have not really been clear on where we're going. So I know we're continuing to try. So my last question, so thank you for that. And so my last is where we have Washington, is a STEM. Is it not STEM? Okay, so tell
It
me.
is STEM.
Okay,
If that was a position, again, that was created a while ago.
okay,
And it was an agreement between the district and the PTO of 60% and 40% of the funding being paid for between the two.
okay. Yeah.
That previous administration.
Before, yes, that
Yeah.
was several, I believe it was 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, so I think that, again, as we're continuing to get communication, this was decisions made based on what was happening at that time. And so now we're here. It doesn't mean that we're trying to, not be mindful of what's being asked now, but we've got a decision here that we make. So how do we then have that conversation about, here was where the decision was made. It was made with the district and previous district here. And so the more that we can explain, and I think we have, but I think we might have to maybe bring it as a special report too. And I don't want to add anything, but where can we maybe integrate with something else we're doing?
I think that's a great idea, and I will like to bring that back. And the principals who helped maybe were at the table when those decisions were
Yeah.
made, because we probably need to dig in a little more from their perspective on.
Absolutely.
And we also want to be mindful of how the decisions got made at each school and how that school came to be with those priorities, because sometimes we do think like, well, we're going to give everybody this, and that may not be the case. So I'll work with principals on bringing something back with you.
Yeah, I think, and I just add one more comment. I think that also will minimize the district did this and the district made that decision. Oftentimes all decision makers are not being acknowledged for whatever it is, whether you like it or not. But I think that's an important piece about, I appreciate you look at the decision makers, if they're still around, to do that. So a lot of, we can, balance some of the district pushback on what's being done. Any additional comments on this issue? Okay, thank you so much for your presentation.
You're
Looking
welcome.
forward to the next reports. Okay, so that will move, board members, I know we've been going a long day here. We're going to take self-care. Do you need a break here now, or you ready, do you need about a 10-minute break? Or it's up to you guys, or you can do self-care. So you don't want a break, and you're going to take care of yourselves. Okay, good. Next. Okay, now we're going to move to the consent agenda. Just, your will. Dr. Bill.
I am going to have to abstain on one of the items. So on item G 3, number 6, there's a VADA item that will need to be voted on separately, but everything else is fine for me.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, any items board members would like to pull on the consent agenda, or superintendent? No request to speak? No. We're good. May I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda with the exception of item G3, item 6. So all of it can be done except for item 6 on G3.
I will make that motion.
I second.
Okay. Motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands.
Aye.
Thank you. Now may I have a motion for approval on G3, item 6?
I'll make that motion as well.
Second.
Motion and second. I'll do a roll call because I know we need to abstain. Mr. Board Member Escobedo, you're just gonna be a doctor.
Aye.
Mr. Banning,
Aye.
Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Ms. Sims Moulton, aye. Mr. Student Board Member,
Aye.
okay. And we have one extension. That being said, it's been motion and second and voted for with one extension. Thank you. Motion passes. So now we will move to the action agenda. H1, approval of additional interpreter and translator contracts for DP Is that Dos Pueblos High School? Okay.
Good evening, Board President,
Good evening.
board members, Dr. Maldonado. I would like to stand here and ask for you to approve the additional interpreters for Dos Pueblos High School. They're really looking out for their students and their parents as they offer a variety of programs that are beyond the scope of what our district translators can participate in. So they want to provide the opportunity to have these additional translators in their school so that they can translate to their parents.
Okay, any requests to speak on this item? Any questions, board members? I just do have a question. Where are they getting the additional translators? Where are they coming from, the community, or are they within?
So these are members that have already worked with the district previously. And so we are aware of their services, what they can offer, and they work very, very much like our current interpreters that work for us.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the contracts and contract addendums for Lucinda Aragon, Lourdes Martinez, Hugo Santos, and Voices of Translation and Interpretation Service.
Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
In motion and second, all in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Just note that Ms. Munoz is out of the room, so all in favor is 4-0. Right, thank you, Doctor. Are you next? Is that you next? No, you're, okay. Dr. Sheffield, thank you. H2, approval of variable term waiver request. Ms. Peak is on her way.
Good evening, Board President Sims Mountain, board members, and Dr. Maldonado. As you know, there are a variety.
Miss Peak, can you turn on the mic
Oh, I'm sorry. It was on.
or put it closer to your mouth? It sounds like.
Let's try that. Did that help?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
As you know, there are a variety of types of credentials and permits available for teachers to be authorized by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, which is why I'm usually in front of you. So this evening, I'm coming before you in regard to a credential request for 3 variable term waivers. Waivers are typically granted by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing when there are no other credential options available. The first of the 3 is for a first-year special education teacher who's completed the majority of her coursework. She is currently pursuing her extensive support needs special education credential and is anticipated to be complete in June of 2025. The other 2 are EL authorizations for teachers who are currently teaching on preliminary CTE credentials. CTE credentials are only authorized in emergency CLAD the first year. Although the CLAD is part of their coursework, they aren't granted the EL authorization until they have cleared their preliminary credential, which typically takes 2 to 3 years. Both of these candidates completed IELD training last school year and were to complete the first of 3 modules yesterday on our professional learning day. We are recommending approval to submit these 3 waivers to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Peak. Any requests to speak on this item? Okay. Board members, any comments or questions? Not hearing that, may I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the variable term waiver request.
Second.
Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 And just want to remind that our all in favor at this point is still 4-0. Dr. Becchio, thank you, Ms. Peak. Dr. Becchio.
Okay, good evening again. Human resources recommendations. I wanted to turn your attention to the board recommendation list. And worth noting is again, a bachelor's degree, Rebecca Mendoza Rendon with approval would receive the stipend for a bachelor's degree. So congratulations to her. And then we have Rebecca Beana Jacinto, Maritza Flores, Esmeralda Mendoza Lopez, Jerry Rosario, Arisbeth Serrano Perez, and Gabriela Tovar, who all are on the list to receive a premium pay, either increase or a premium pay for the first time. So congratulations to them. And with that, I will turn the list over to you for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any requests to speak on this item? All right, board members, any comments or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the human resources recommendations.
I second the motion to approve the human resources recommendations.
Okay, item been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Dr. Becchio, I think you're still standing, so.
Thank you. Okay, so this next item is coming before you as an board approval of an MOU between CSEA and SB Unified. You'll see that as one of the documents for a new job position classification called Wellness Center Coordinator. The other part of this item is the job description that was agreed to as part of that MOU. And I've included that there. Worth noting, this is in relation to the wellness centers that are either established or being established at the 4 high schools. And this position will be a position that's not only able to serve the students and coordinate that wellness center, but also we have written into the job description the ability for us to get reimbursed by the state for some of the services that are going to be provided. So it will be a revenue source there. And this particular position is being proposed at DP since they are ready to go. And the foundation, DP High School Foundation, is supporting that position with funds. I want to also note before I turn it over to you for questions and consideration is that this approval tonight will then be pending ratification by the CSEA membership. We're hoping this week. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Madam Board President.
No request to speak on this item. Board members, any comments or questions?
I do have a quick question, and I don't know if this is something you can answer. Kind of apropos of my previous comments, if we have wellness centers at our 3 of our high schools, do we ever see a scenario, and I don't know if this is a CSEA question or not, where this position can be shared by the high schools if we have budgetary issues? I'm not talking about this one. I know it's attached to DPA and it's being funded by their foundation, but in the future, I think maybe this is some of the resources we need to consider sharing if that is possible. And is that a possibility?
Yeah, well, it's all 4 high schools, I believe, have wellness centers, correct? And so, yes, contractually, we could do that. We could have somebody have a split assignment. And then programmatically, I can have Kenya speak to that.
For this particular position, it would defeat the purpose of having a place that kids can self-select and a staff member there to serve if that particular position was being shared between sites.
Meaning that this person is to supervise the students, and if that person is not there, there's no supervision and no services can happen.
Supervision and direct services.
Okay, just thanks for clarifying that.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions, board members, clarifications? May I have a motion for approval? Everybody speak now. Come on.
I'll move
Don't be
to
scared.
approve the new classified job description and MOU with CSEA, a wellness center coordinator.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Becchio. So we're gonna do a little agenda management, doctor. Everybody's a doctor after 8 o'clock, so just claim it. So, Mr. Alvarado, if you want to come, we'll go ahead and since you're here, there's approval. We're gonna look at we're gonna see this item since you're here, so you're not having to wait for further in the evening. Yes, I just want to tell him why he was like here. So this is item number 8, approval of the memorandum of understanding with Boys and Girls of Santa Barbara Incorporated. Ms. Edison.
So I am bringing this as part of Student and Family Services. This is a cross-department MOU. We currently have services that are being provided to Santa Barbara High School, through the after-school sports as well as the folklorico, so arts program. We also have included in the MOU possibilities to rent out space there for other purposes in the future. As you know, we have moved to one MOU per agency, not several MOUs across the district. And so if there was an opportunity to add services, we would add an addendum to this one MOU, not bring in a separate one.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I see no request to speak. Board members, any comments or questions? Mr. Escobedo.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Alvarado. She's handing out doctorates. I might as well too.
After 8 o'clock.
What you're doing at the club is amazing. I walk by all the time and you've really refurbished the place, and I'm excited for our students to be able to take advantage of all the amazing services and programs that you have. And if you want to give a public comment, Dr. Alvarado.
After 8 o'clock, Santa Barbara Unified handed out doctorates, so come on.
Good evening, board. I just wanted to say that, we're really trying to develop a partnership-driven strategy and working with multiple organizations across the board that are experts in different areas, whether it's in the arts or whether it's in music, dance, working with AHA with social emotional behavior. So we're working with a lot of multiple agencies. And so this opportunity to partner with the school district, for me, it's interesting because I grew up in that club and I'm a product of Santa Barbara Unified. So to have that union and to be there and to see us work with kids from Cleveland, Franklin, Adelante, the junior high, the high school, and broader, because AHA's bringing in kids from DP and San Marcos. And so we're really trying to make it a community center for all of Santa Barbara. But yeah, we are specific to our neighborhood needs, but this opportunity to work with the school district is really going to allow us to really build our capacity and broaden opportunities for all children. So we're really excited. So thank you.
Well, thank you for all that you do, and I'm really excited to see the transformation in the short period of time and then into the future. So thank you for everything.
Awesome. So with that, any additional comments or questions, board members? Hearing none, Dr. Escobedo, want to make the motion?
I'll move to approve the MOU with the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Barbara Incorporated, also known as the club.
I second the motion.
Item been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Dr. Edison, you might as well stay. I think this next one is you, or maybe someone else. Is the approval of after-school enrichment bundle?
That would not be me. I would yield.
Okay, I can't, we'll yield to the doctor.
Good evening again. I would like to ask the board to approve the after-school enrichment bundle. These are a variety of partnerships and vendors that have come about, recommendations from our school sites, and we would like to provide opportunities for all of our school sites to participate in after-school enrichment. So this is in addition to AOK. These are opportunities such as chess or acting, even cooking. So each school will have an opportunity to participate in 3 to 4 different programs. And each session is about 8 to 10 weeks. And so our plan is to hopefully rotate the different agencies through the school sites by providing these after-school enrichment opportunities.
Thank you for that presentation. Any requests to speak on this item? Okay.
We have 2 public commenters. The first is Peggy Wilson. Welcome.
Thank you. Get this thing straight. Okay. Yes. I'm looking over all the classes and I see your little thing that you write, and it says Santa Barbara Unified would like to partner with community partners to offer equitable opportunities for all students to participate in the after-school enrichment opportunities at all elementary schools within the district. It also goes down further to say, the district aims to provide a more inclusive and comprehensive array of after-school options that meet the needs and interests of all students. Well, I'm a board member of the After School Good News Club, and we're not on that list. I just want to read a little bit about it. Kind of wish we were asked to be on that list. We've been in the school after school program for about 20 years. So anyways, the after school program charges no fees to the parents. Get this straight. For the valuable programming it offers the district children, promoting youth character development. Good News Club's curriculum is supportive of and directly related to the mandate of the California Education Code Section 233.5A, which requires schools to impress upon the minds of the pupils the principles of morality, truth, justice, patriotism, and a true comprehension of rights, duties, and dignity of American citizenship, and the meaning of equality and human dignity, including the promotion of harmonious relations, kindness towards domestic pets, and the humane treatment of living creatures, to teach them to avoid idleness, profanity, falsehood, and instruct them in manners and morals and the principles of a free government, and to prevent acts of hate violence. Okay, good. I have a little bit of time. So I actually would, as a board member, like to be included in this list. And if you did, you also would be in compliance with the 2001 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, which says it is legal to allow Good News Clubs to meet in school facilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one other public commenter, Sharon Yagotka. Yagotka? Welcome.
Okay, so is this on? Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name's Sharon Yagotka. I'm thankful for my God-given freedom of speech and my free will to worship who I wish. Separation of church and state was meant to keep the government from imposing their religious beliefs on the people. For the last 14 years, I have volunteered with the Good News Club in Santa Barbara. I'm also the ministry coordinator for the Good News Club for Santa Barbara County. The GNC is a nonprofit organization since 1937, and on June 11, 2001, the Supreme Court ruled to allow the Good News Club after school. At the Good News Club, children are taught the principles of morality, truth, justice, and many more concepts and character qualities from a biblical viewpoint. All are consistent with district policy. This year is my 12th year directing the Good News Club at Roosevelt School, and it has been my greatest joy. Over the years, the Good News Club has been treated unfairly by principals, board members, superintendents, and hostile parents. Scheduled meetings have been ignored, as well as emails and mailings. The Good News Club is offered free to every child and taught by community members who have been screened, fingerprinted, interviewed, and regularly trained every month. Children can attend with a signed permission form by their parents. I also just want to bring to your attention that we have been denied from having our flyers distributed or signed so that the children and parents can locate us. My signs have even been stolen from my vehicle and even from the school. They won't allow me to put my signs up, but other signs are allowed on around the school. The approval of the after-school enrichment program is very upsetting and very well discriminating towards the Good News Club. In 2019, I emailed Ed Zuccalli inquiring about an MOU and was told, quote unquote, the district enters into MOUs with community partners. So lastly, why weren't we contacted? Equity and inclusivity are always stressed. Here you say, right here, that the district aims to improve a more inclusive and comprehensive array of after-school programs or after-school options. So I would appreciate a meeting to discuss the legality of the Good News Club and how we can be a part of this within Santa Barbara Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Sheffield, thank you for the report. So we've heard the public comments, and so I would encourage them to meet so they can get an understanding of how we, come to approve what community groups that we're working with. So if you could follow up with them to make sure we're addressing that. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the comments. Board members, any comments or questions? Dr. Bill?
I am actually requesting that this item be pulled for approval from the agenda. As a board member, I feel that I need to be well informed about the things that I vote on. And I have a lot of questions about how the decision to provide a district approved after school program was made. I'm not commenting on the public comments. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying here. I am looking at the programs. I am hearing comments that let me preface this. For 7 years, I was the after school coordinator at Peabody Charter School. And I remember how interesting and difficult it was to provide a quality program. And it wasn't about me. It was providing the program that the students and the parents wanted. When I look at this and I am looking at letters that I've received, I have a lot of questions about the communication and how the decisions were made. And I am also concerned about the fact that as a parent, I definitely had ideas and interests from my children about what they might enjoy. So I recognize some of these programs. I don't recognize all of them. So I would like to have further discussion and more information before I vote on something that was presented to me on Friday on how this decision-making happened. Were the PTAs involved in looking at the programs? Did they come up with this roster? How did we come up with this roster? And even questions like, how is this being presented? When I look at the details of what has been sent to me, not all students can participate. There is capacity. There are people who will not qualify. The AOK program cannot take the overflow of students who can't participate in these programs. So I'm concerned as a person who used to run an after-school program. I tried to provide a program that had capacity in addition to the program that was offered at the school. And I'm not convinced in looking at this plan that has been, I just don't have enough information. So I don't feel prepared to approve this without more information. So I'm asking that it be postponed until the next board meeting upon receiving more information and discussion about how this was proposed.
So thank you for that. I do want to just, as a matter of protocol, so the action agenda allows us a time to discuss it further if we have additional information and have that conversation. So in order for it to be pulled, it's not necessarily having to be pulled, but to be delayed to come back for further, we need the vote of the board.
I am requesting that it be delayed.
So you're making a
Sorry.
motion, or you're making a motion, or you ask? Okay, board members, Mr. Escobedo.
I'm gonna support Dr. Beal on this one and vote to table it. I think it's useful to understand, I think just given other conversations that are happening too about how process. I think those are more of my questions is process, not the content. I look at these programs, I did research on these programs and they seem fine to me, but I do have questions about how we selected certain programs, how kids are going to get access to these programs. Those are more of the questions that I have in terms of process. And I think a couple of weeks, when's our next meeting? It's in a couple of weeks, I think. Unless it is so urgent that we have this discussion right now, I think allowing time for us to have a little bit of one-on-one time to ask our questions and discuss it and get a little bit more clarity wouldn't hurt.
Okay, so we're making a motion and the motion has been made and seconded. So I want to call a roll call with regards to that, the vote on that, whether we're going to delay it or go forth with it as stated on the board, on the agenda. So, Dr. Bell, you're voting to?
I move to delay the voting until the next board meeting.
Okay. Ms. Munoz?
I vote for going ahead and voting on this item.
Okay. Mr. Banning?
I vote aye.
I to delay.
Delay.
Okay.
Aye.
Mr. Smith. Yeah, I vote, obviously we have the 3 votes to delay. I vote in going ahead with it. And I really hear the members of the board with regards to that. I know we have a process in place and sometimes we need to make that connection with that. So if I'm understanding, so let me just do that. It's been motioned and seconded, and with the 3 votes, it will be delayed and tabled. But I want to have some discussion beyond that. So just so we're clear on that. I want to know, in terms of, so let me understand the delay. So it's not with the agencies. Is that what I'm hearing? Or you more like the process? So what do we need to give direction to our team to know what to do?
So I feel that this change in how we're managing after school programs, we talk about equity, we talk about community engagement, and I want to see that the process to reach this decision involved all those elements, that there was adequate discussion with not just the principals, but with the PTA heads who headed this, and that they are in favor of this program, and they feel that the program adequately addresses their needs at their schools. And if that's what I want to hear, that this is something that feels like an acceptable program at their school. I understand the equity issues, but I'm not understanding if this is an acceptable substitute and has enough community support and input to be a successful program at the schools.
Mr. Escobedo.
So mine is a little bit different. Mine is, I want to know that there was input given, but I don't know that it's always possible to get buy-in from all of the PTOs or all of like when we say community to get them on board. I don't know that it's possible always to get everybody on the same page. What I'm hoping is that there were avenues for valuable input to be given and that it was weighed amongst many different considerations to come to a conclusion. And I want to know what that process was, from getting the information, what our goal was, what input was given, what were the considerations, and how did we land here? And what is the goal? That's more of what I'm looking for. Because I just don't know that we are ever going to be able to get everybody in the same place, especially when you're talking about so many different schools with so many different views on what the needs are.
Mr. Mills.
Yeah, so if we're, just trying to figure out how these programs were chosen, could we have discussion about, what the process was?
Yes, if
you know?
it's been tabled, and if we want to go forth with regards to getting those answers, I don't know that that's necessarily going to change. If further discussion is going to change us, approving it tonight, then yes. If it's not, then we need to table it and go forth and then give good direction on what it is that we're asking the team to come back, Dr. Sheffield in this case, to come back. What are we looking for? I think we're hearing that. So Ms. Manos.
Yes, I'm only saying that because it seems like we're hearing two
Yes,
different
absolutely.
perspectives.
Yeah.
And
That's-
I have that information that I could definitely provide for you when you're ready for that.
You have it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys willing to hear the discussion, or you want to just table it for another time?
I feel that there's a piece that's missing that I would feel reluctant to have you speak for the community. That's the issue there. And so it's not, they're different and not different. I don't expect that we listen to all the schools and we say, okay, you all want these programs, so we're going to figure out how we can do all the programs at the schools you want. But I am not getting the feeling that this was discussed in a way that feels it's meeting the needs of the school. Like the process is the issue, the discussion is the issue. How did we land on these programs? Did we look at what is needed? Did the schools tell us what was needed and we're fulfilling those needs? Because we're substituting a program that they've had for many years and they've supported. And we're putting a program in place, and are we actually putting a program in place that meets the needs and is going to create equity, as well as what it normally serves, an after-school program that enriches our students and helps the parents?
Any additional comments? Mr. Banning, you're pondering.
I share pieces of concern with both of my board member colleagues here, and I appreciate that this is a rather unusual request. However, I do think a little time on this and an opportunity to have more questions answered would be helpful.
Okay, you're in the discussion. That's what this is about, and making sure that we're giving right direction, that we're being clear and transparent with regards to what's going on here. But I think I also think that it's important in terms of the process that have been working on to really improve this process about community partnerships, being clear about the partnerships and what's being brought before us. And I think, and for me, I did have a question, like we had, several questions about enrichment programs going away. So maybe that part was kind of missing, but what is that doing? So I think it's important to make that connection here, Dr. Sheffield, that we're asking to, if you could bring back, you might need to replay this, in terms of, so you can get clarity on what we're asking to do. And is it, and I would say, is anything in here time sensitive too?
Well, I would say that all the programs are time sensitive
Okay.
because I think that our parents are saying things have gone away because the vendors need to be board approved prior to being in our schools. And so going through the process of, number one, getting MOUs, getting the correct information in the MOUs, all of that took time, which brought us to this day right now. And so the time sensitivity, we have allowed time to pass from the beginning of school to now to get to this place. And now we will delay it more. But we will provide that information that you are asking for, making sure you're aware of how it started, which did start at the beginning of the year, until how we got here right now, how we gathered the list of programs that we gathered. I would be more than happy to do that. And so it will just delay the time that it will start, and we'll make sure the schools understand and know what the next steps are as we wait.
And I just want to add that the vendors are we're told this was coming to the board today. So that's another group of people that will also be disappointed, I think. So but I will take direction from the board on how you want to go. And it sounds like I've already gotten it.
Sounds like that through, the voting and asking for, and also asking from the board further clarification to give direction. But I think it's real clear. I think it's really important to communicate this decision tonight with regard. The board is asking for, further information in order to be more informed, to make that decision. So it's not on the team here in terms of work you haven't done. We're just asking for more information, and that's the delay. Not because something you did or did not do. We're just asking for further clarification of the process to ensure, can I just say that this word equity has been thrown around so much tonight.
Right.
And depending on if it's affirming one's view or not. And so equity is exactly what it is. It allows everybody to make sure that we have opportunity to raise up and level up. So I want us to be mindful of now weaponizing, if you will, the word equity. The whole point of that, because we have not had balance. And so there's no better way to do that and to start looking through an equitable lens. So, the fence, we've got 3 holes in the fence. One's here, you can't see the whole ball game. So how do we level up this person who can't see? That's not taking away the view of the person who can see. It's simply saying you that have to look through this hole and can't see the whole game, we're going to level you up. So let's be careful about weaponizing equity when we don't like a decision or we want our bias to be affirmed because we don't agree with where it's going. Because again, it's looking as if we're taking something away, and we're not. If we're going to say all, let's say all. And let's look at our process, making sure that our processes and our policies are not distant between the actions that we're taking. So use the word equity as an opportunity to make sure all have the opportunity. So excuse me for being on that soapbox, but I just, tonight I've just heard it too much. And I think it's important to be able to think about that. So the board has made a decision. through the process. Hold on just one second. But board has made a decision through the process, and I hope you've
Yes.
gotten good direction on
Yes.
what we need to do to go forward and communicating this clearly
Yes.
as to the delays, why it needs to happen. Rightfully, it needs to be able to do that. We want to make sure we're making informed decisions and right decisions. So with that, Ms. Munoz.
Yeah, just a comment in terms of the parents that need, after school care, is that I am concerned about, I just want to put it on the table that I'm concerned, that in terms of the process, that this may have to happen again and there will be a further delay in terms of after school care for the parents after, December, January. Just saying.
Well, appreciate that input. So it's coming back on our November, the earliest it can come back is November 12th, I believe, right? Okay. So hopefully we'll come back and we're going to make sure that we get the board the information they need so that, again, to address, to make sure the parents are not having to deal with, after school care. And I just, the board's discussed, it's our discussion and it's an important discussion to have. So I want to be respectful of that as well.
I
Dr.
just want to
Sheffield.
mention just one thing, you were concerned. We do have AOK, that is a program. Actually, this year, the numbers have grown tremendously. Traditionally, we usually service in AOK about 750 to 800 students. So far right now, we currently have 1,135 students being serviced in AOK. And that number will continue to grow. We are able to hire more employees, and we're able to take on more students. So we are growing in that area and providing after-school care for our students.
Okay.
Thank
You for your presentation. Okay, board members, we're going to move to 8.6, approval of additional positions and cost increase in Emergis Healthcare, Student, Family, and Dr. Becchio.
Okay, thank you very much for having me back up to the podium. This item is, as you may have read in the actual background section, we do have 5 speech and language openings. This particular proposal here is allowing us to fill 2 of those with agency hires and that are in person, and then the other 3 are remote. And the cost to the district, the additional cost to the district is $24,918 to hire through this agency. With that, I'd like to ask for the board's approval of this so we can get these employees started.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any requests to speak on this item? Okay, board members, any comments or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve the cost increase in additional positions with Emergis Healthcare, Inc. for 24-25 school year.
I'll second.
Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we will move to H7, adoption of resolution 2024-25-13 for California Department of Education, the California State Preschool Program. Educational Service, Dr. Sheffield.
Good evening again. We would ask the board if they would approve this resolution. This resolution is put in place to continue to receive funding for our preschool programs. If you take a look at the attachment at the bottom, I know there was some question on, is this a resolution? If you look at the next to the last page within your attached document, I believe it is at the bottom. Page 8, or actually page 9, there is a statement stating that you would like to certify this particular document. So if you would go to all the way to the bottom, you move up a little bit. Oh. And that a little bit higher. And right there at the bottom is where you would use that resolution to go ahead and move forward with adopting this for the continued funding.
Okay. Any requests to speak on this item? Comments or questions? Dr. Sheffield, is this going to be the resolution? Is that the template now? That's not our typical
It is not, this is a part of the actual application and documentation that it does not look, that's why I took you to that place.
Okay,
Because this is actually a part of the document from California Department of Education
So it's
in their
their-
early ed division. So
okay,
it's not going to replace what we traditionally have in place for a resolution, but it is a part of this document.
okay. Mr. Vance, are you on your way? Okay, he wants to ask comment.
Good evening. Just to bring some clarity to this, this resolution has been brought to you for the past 2 years that we know, looking at it in the board agenda. So it's actually just part of the process of the application. So.
Yeah, I think you may be hearing a little puzzlement because when you say, if it says 2513, that means it's in our. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and no request to speak, I hear. No additional board comments or questions. If so, may I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve resolution 2024-25-13, California State Preschool Program Continued Funding Application for 25-26 school year.
I second.
Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So that brings us, thank you, Dr. Sheffield. That brings us to the end of our meeting with regards to action agenda. You can refer to your coming events if you have any questions. Are there any ones we'd like to call out, Dr. Maldonado, with regards to coming events?
Yes, I would like to comment on the high school showcase, which I shamelessly plugged earlier at Earl Warren Showgrounds. It's an excellent opportunity for junior high school students to get a flavor for all the different options they have when they choose high schools. I also want to call out that in November, we have elementary teachers conducting parent-teacher conferences, and that's the week of November 18th to the 22nd. We have, of course, a Veterans Day holiday, November 11th. And then following that, we have our break for a couple of board holidays, including and up to Thanksgiving holidays in November.
Okay, thank you for the information. Board members, as we conclude our meeting, any comments or questions or clarifications for this meeting? Hearing none, I officially adjourn this meeting. I believe it truly is 8:35.